Welcome back to another episode of Office Hours Podcast with Professor Brad Perkins. Once again, I have in my studio, Sophia is joining us for the episode, but I also have special guests into the studio today. Dr. Paul Peters. Doc, could you just introduce yourself and your background and kind of how you got to know us?
All right, I'm Paul Peters. I'm a chiropractor in Madrid. I've practiced there for 35 years. How did I get to know Brad?
Oh, we were patients of yours,
Right.
and get normal chiropractic for years and years.
Uh-huh.
Probably since you had your little office there in downtown Madrid, which is not much.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't very big.
I understand. Not
Right.
much.
I don't mean not much, right? That sounds terrible. Okay.
It meant a lot to us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it did mean a
that's
lot to
right.
us. That's right. And then you started treating all of us since the kids were little. And then when we kind of ran into some health issues with Cade, that's when, we really got into the whole diet is health, diet is medicine, diet is as a way to fix some stuff. So, Cade, if you want to introduce yourself.
All right. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm your son. But I guess the reason I'm on here is because I had the autoimmune disease. I'm was on American Ninja Warrior. Hopefully, will be back on soon enough. We'll see. Doing a lot of athletics, and I'm going to college for business, sports management, kinesiology, athletic training, and exercise and health, and then state trooper too. Hopefully,
All right, coming up.
jack of all trades, I guess.
All right, so the thing I wanted to talk about today is something that I didn't realize how important it was until it really hit us, and that's diet and choices that you make with regards to health, the difference, diseases that start from within the body. So just as a little bit of background, so Cade, when he was about 10 years old, all right? So growing up, Cade was always on the thin side, all right?
A little small.
Little small, but incredibly athletic. Like I was coaching, and now, coaching soccer in Madrid, Iowa doesn't mean a whole lot. All right, you're like the only team that travels, because Madrid can barely field one team.
Yeah.
All right, but I was coaching his older brother's team, and I would have Cade play up a couple of levels, so that he'd be like 13 playing on the 16-year-old team. And the point is that he was athletic from the very beginning, very athletic, very thin, very muscular. And then when he started limping, it was quite a surprise. So what happened is one fall, when he was 10 years old, he starts limping. We went to an Iowa State football game. I was playing some football with other kids. It was a long day, and by the end of the day, he's kind of limping a little bit. And we're like, okay, well, he probably just hurt himself playing a little football.
Nothing out of the usual.
Yeah, nothing out of the usual. You got to understand, you're looking at the kid that would climb things that should not have been climbed.
If you could climb it, I argue that it should be climbed.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm
Things
just
like
saying. I'm just saying.
things like trees that should not support his weight.
The barn.
The barn, the corn crib that's literally 40, 50 feet tall. Right, he shouldn't have been doing it. Anyway,
Somebody climbed it to make it.
All right. Someone climbed it to me. Okay, true. But those someones weren't on my insurance plan. But anyway, so we think, okay, he's just hurt himself a little bit. He's limping a little bit. No big deal. Well, the limping gets worse, like within a week, like bad. And then we go to the doctor. Doctor's like, all right, he probably just hurt himself playing. We'll put a brace on his ankle. Should be good in a week or two. All right, week or two later, we come back, and it's gotten worse. Now he's on crutches. This process keeps repeating over the next few weeks. So he went from limping to a brace to crutches to a wheelchair in like the course of a month.
Yeah. The progression, though, wasn't just like, okay, all right, my ankle, which was originally what would hurt, like, all right, it's just like it's hurting worse. It's like the pain went from my ankle to my leg, up to my knee, up to my hip, crossed over to my other side and was hurting my other leg, and then just kept spreading. So it wasn't just like I've hurt my ankle. Oh, I'm not letting it rest, so it's just getting worse. It was spreading in a weird way.
And you have to understand, while this is happening, we're going to not just the local pediatrician, but now we're going to specialists. Now we're going to, Methodist down in Des Moines. We're going to University of Iowa hospitals. We're seeing not just pediatricians, but orthopedics. We're seeing neurologists. It's just like on and on and on and on. And we're not getting any answers, and it's getting scary. He's in a wheelchair, and basketball season comes up, which he wanted to play so badly. And we're like, okay, we're going to get this figured out. We're going to get this figured out. And it just keeps getting worse. By January, it was hard for him to get out of bed. He wasn't sleeping. And if he wasn't sleeping, neither was anybody else. Right? It was a pretty stressful time in our house. It was a very, very, very stressful time in the house. And we weren't getting answers. And finally, we got the doctor at University of Iowa. She is literally like, look, this is out of our league. We don't know what's going on. We're going to get you a referral to Mayo Clinic. Okay, a referral, fine, but it took us months to get in to their pediatric neurologist. And while this is going on, while we're waiting for a time slot in Mayo, it's just terrible. You got a kid that can't even walk. It was so bad. In the middle of the night, I'd have to carry him to the bathroom to take a leak, otherwise he couldn't make it. And anyway, we were getting pretty desperate. Along the way, we tried about everything that you could imagine. And there are, Doc, I'm gonna criticize the medical profession as a whole here, if you don't mind. There's a lot of quacks out there selling snake oil, claiming that it's like, oh, do our therapy, pay for our therapy, pay for everything from, God, we took Cade to a acupuncturist, the electronic ones. We took him to a physical therapist. We took him to...
Or that one lady that tried to help me because she said she could sense my energy or whatever. Never even laid a hand on it. Just like, I was like, what the heck am I doing here?
Oh, my Lord.
I was 10 and I was like, I was told magic wasn't real, but now this lady's telling me she can feel my aura.
She can feel my aura, and we're paying for this,
Oh, my gosh.
But you're a parent, and your kid's... It looks like he's dying in front of you, and...
Because, at that point, obviously everything was bad. And I couldn't walk, but you skipped over a lot of the...
Yeah, we kind of glossed over. Yeah, go ahead.
Like,
why don't you talk about what it was?
Lord.
Yeah,
I get to explain it.
Yeah, you get to explain it a little bit.
Well, basically, long story short, a lot of it was pain. That was the main problem, I'd say. My nerves were all flaring off, and I'd have headaches, I'd have body aches, just constant burning. My joints constantly felt like they were swelling, like there was something in it that wanted to burst out. Pretty much all those forms of pains you can think of.
Yeah, and nothing dulled it.
No.
We were trying just normal over-the-counter Advil.
Warm bath helped.
Yeah, warm bath helped a little. Okay, help a little.
Helps
All
a
right,
little,
we're still talking. It was so bad he wasn't sleeping at night. Like, I bet there was some nights I'd read books to him at night to try to get him to sleep. And there were some nights we'd start reading and dawn would come and I'm still reading. All right. It was
You
bad.
remember the times, though, I would pass out?
Yeah.
I'd start shaking.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes his body would sit here and just be, his muscles would be contracting like hundreds of times a minute, just sit there and flutter almost. And it's like, he's not getting any real sleep. And we're like, oh my gosh, and then along the way, we had a doctor that was very, very caring and was very, very out of his league. And he knew it. I felt he was here. This is how he would call me, like personal cell phone. The pediatrician would call me on the weekends. It's like, hey, how's Cade doing? How's it going? What's going on? And now where we differed is that he was looking more for a traditional solution. I'm looking for a drug. I'm looking for a therapy, something. And then, and we tried them all. But what he didn't agree with was when we decided to try some diet things. All right. Like I said, very, very well-meaning. but he didn't have any experience with this. Really caring guy. The worst though was he was well-meaning, and he's like, remember the psychologist? Okay, all right. So I don't know, Sophia, you ever deal with chronic pain like this?
Not like this.
All right. Sorry.
No, you're okay. I haven't dealt with anything this bad, no.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
special.
Yeah. Well, you talk to, and here's the thing: is you feel like you're alone when you're going through this. You know, you feel like, all right, there's no one understands what we're going through, and no one understands.
Oh, everybody understands.
Oh, everybody
understands, but they don't get it. And
They don't
"Oh,
really. Yeah.
We understand, I get it. It's hard.
Yeah.
There are 2 cents, and then it's just
Yeah.
it's not what I need to hear right now.
Right. Well, but the worst one, was the psychologist he sent us to. So the doctor's like at one point we're in, and you have to understand, we're doing like doctor visits, specialist therapies every day of the week for like weeks going on before we got to Mayo Clinic. We were doing therapist every day of the week. It was just exhausting on all of us. And the doctor had me, called me into a room. He goes, "Hey, Brad, I need to talk to you." And I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Look, there's this child psychologist that I think Cade should talk to." And I'm like, "Excuse me? Are you trying to tell me you think this is just in his head?"
That's crazy.
And he's like, "No, I believe it." He goes, "I believe it's real." He goes, but he needs to be able to deal with the pain because we're not getting a solution, and maybe just talking to somebody about it would help. He's like, "I really think this guy can help."
And at this point, it was like I wasn't doing anything. Normal kid, going out, they're doing their stuff, they're doing school, they're playing games, they're, messing around or whatever. I would just sit, and I was just
Or lay down. Just lay
there,
down.
and
Lay
I would
there.
just spend my days just staring at the ceiling because I just couldn't function or do anything.
Yeah.
Watching an iPad or TV was hurting my head. Reading a book would hurt my head. Playing games would hurt my body. People talking to me would hurt my head. Like any action, anything that happened in the world around me just caused me pain.
So he tells us to go in and talk to this psychologist, right? And I will never forget this. So we go into the
I'll never forget this.
Cade will never forget this.
Dude, I was told that you were like a boxer, a wrestler, and in the army before this and all that.
Not army.
Whatever
Not
it
army.
was. Marines? The Marines?
It doesn't matter. It
Doesn't matter. Well, whatever. I was like, and then growing up, all you were ever was kind. And I was like, there's no way. I was like, he's not nearly tough enough for that. He's not a scary guy. I mean, what? I mean, obviously you were scary when you were like frustrated with us, but it was like, man, come on, buddy. You can do better. And I felt disappointed in myself when he gave me those talks. I was like, there's nothing aggressive really about him.
Okay. So we go into the psychologist. We go to the psychologist, and I'm going to use the actual words that I use since this is a podcast, and right on YouTube you can pick the age for the people, so you can say anything you want. So I'm going to use the actual terms
Oh dear.
that I used that day. He starts talking to us, and he's like, "Okay, Cade, have your parents gone through divorce?" Like he's asking this. So Gina and I are sitting there. And he's like, "So, has your family had a divorce?" We're like, "No." Has anyone been arrested in your family? What? And he's like, "Have you moved? Have you?" He's going through all these trauma things.
Have you lost a friend?
Yeah. Have you lost a
pet?
friend? Have you lost a pet? Like all this stuff. I look at him like, "Stop! Just stop your freaking questions. All right." I said,
At this point, Mom puts earbuds on my head.
Yeah.
I just want to make. Mom knew exactly. I don't know. She saw it in your eyes because she's like.
I think
Cade,
Mom
listen
was
to your
just
music.
Mom was just as pissed. I gotta say.
Yeah,
You gotta understand our little 5'2", his mom, little bitty woman,
Country girl.
Yeah, dude. Oh, she was pissed too. And I'm like, "Listen, I am his father. This is his mother. We are married."
You got to give the.
Yeah. I'm like
he's
the
literally
two of us
all hands are in. He's like,
are married. I said, "We have lived in the same house since he was born. The lady that lives across the road from us has lived in that house since 1950. Cade has never known a different neighbor or a different parent
or a different
or a
dog.
different house. Yeah,
We had the same truck.
We had the
since we were-
same dog.
yeah.
I said, I bought my truck in 2002 2 years before he was married, and I'm still
2000.
driving it.
2000,
Yeah.
2 years before I was born.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, 2002.
I'm
Yeah,
going to say I was not married
2000.
at all then.
right.
Still not.
I'm like, yeah. We still have that truck, by the way.
Yeah,
Right?
it's still sitting in
It's
the
still
yard.
sitting in the yard.
It might even run if you change the battery on
All
it.
right, maybe.
And the
All right,
tires.
all right.
And the starter.
Hey, it's Boone County. It's required. All right.
Gotta have that old truck.
Right. Yeah. She lives next to the mansion downtown Des Moines, so Sophia wouldn't understand.
Wouldn't
these
understand.
Things.
My
Yeah.
whole family was raised in Madrid.
What's that?
In Madrid?
Wait.
My dad went to Madrid High School.
Oh Lord, your dad's.
Way.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, oh, I wish I would have known that when your dad was in here. Right. That means he's he. Never mind. I'm not gonna say, but I know what.
I
Probably
got to ask,
explained it.
how old's your dad?
He's like 50. Do you know my Sorry, you might know my grandma if you know like the last name Mordini.
I think
Oh,
she's calling
geez.
you old.
You know her?
I know the Mordinis, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's us.
Are they thugs?
So how are you?
I mean, it's
are you
Madrid.
related to John?
Yeah, that's my dad.
No, there's another John. Nardini?
Oh,
More.
Mordini. Oh, John's your dad?
yeah.
Yeah, I know your dad.
Oh,
I know,
really?
yeah, no, I know your family. Yeah.
Madrid is a small place.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Okay, yeah.
Anyways, continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Therapist, they have
So
a
anyway,
truck,
back to the
same
therapist.
truck.
So same truck, same everything. I'm like, the kid hasn't even lost a dog. It's not
Trauma.
it's not a psychological trauma. He's like, oh, well, all right, I'm gonna cross those off the list. And he goes, well, here's what I think it is. I think he's having a convergence syndrome, or what was it? Convergence or
I had my earbuds in.
you
at
had
that
your
point.
earbuds in, yeah.
Mom
you
knew
know,
stuff was about to go
dissociative
down.
syndrome. Anyway, I'm like, a what? He goes, yeah, it's where there's a trauma in the kid's life, and maybe a physical one, and pain starts, but when it leaves, the nerves still hold on to it, like it's still there, like a phantom pain for, and he goes, I think that's what he's suffering from, and we just need to get him mentally to realize the pain's not there. Oh, crap.
The problem with that is it's called receptor field enhancement, and it wouldn't be multiple joints and traveling and all the things that happened to him. So just thought you
Or
might
while
wanna
I
know
was
that.
asleep. I mean, like,
Yeah,
I'd
exactly.
go fall asleep and my
Yeah.
body's
Yeah,
just like shaking. 'cause
exactly,
it hurts.
exactly.
It's
And
involuntary.
I'm like, I literally I says, what in the fuck are you saying? I'm like, how many?
I had never heard my dad cuss before this, by the way.
I go, how many patients have you treated with this and helped?
Well.
And then he goes through, remember this, he stands up and he gets this book off of his shelf. And he says, well, none, but I read this book on it. And he's like holding this book. And I'm like, I slam my hand down the book. Then I don't want to goddamn talk to you. I want to talk to the person that wrote the book. I'm like, what? And I just,
That's good.
Oh man, you should have been there for it.
I
He
wish I
went
was.
off.
You're gonna try that him in class sometime when he quotes something.
Yeah, I'm gonna slam a book down this time.
I don't want to talk
She
to you.
doesn't
Talk
have
to
any
the
of my
person that
classes
wrote
anymore.
This book.
yeah. Well, guess what? I did write the book that she took 352 out of.
Oh,
So
wow.
there.
There you go.
All right. So anyway, I'm so
Sir, I
furious. at this
think
guy.
you're a little stressed.
Yeah, and then he goes, this guy is terrified. He's like, sir, and then
He just kept
mom,
making it worse for
mom,
himself.
yeah, mom chimes in. She's like, we have not slept in months. Our child is dying, and we were watching this, and you're telling me this is in his head. Mom starts in.
Yeah, because
Right.
at this point, didn't we figure out that I wasn't processing any foods either? It had gotten to the point where like my organs weren't working. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
processing any. Like I wasn't processing foods. I wasn't digesting foods. I wasn't absorbing vitamins. Like
And then
we were at a
this is
rough
when-
point at that.
So not only was I starting in on the guy, but so was Gina. Right? He knows Gina, and just imagine this. Right? I don't know.
At
However,
this point, I'm back
you've
here and
never-
I just scooted to the side and just
Yeah.
with my earbud. I'm like, I kind of want to hear it.
Yeah. So then he's like, "Sir, you and your wife seem tense."
In that voice too.
And, yeah, in that voice, I'm doing it right, and I'm like, and that's when I continued to lose it. I'm like, tense. I'm like, you want to see tense? And then anyway, so
Brad, I think what
yeah.
listening to you tell that whole story, what was happening is everybody's looking at the end point. They're looking for a label, a title, a disease, a
Yep.
condition.
Oh my god.
And so when you're looking at the end of the road, you're not seeing what you had gone through. He was seeing the end results. I'm not sure. I'm sure he was having some issues, that he could use help with because of the pain that he'd been dealing with stuff. But the problem is they were looking for that end point. They didn't see everything you were processing through the whole program.
And you know what? That is something that,
Including the doctors that were at Iowa State, everybody else, they're looking for that diagnosis, that name, that title.
and they're all looking for it within their narrow scope of specialty.
Mhm.
None of them, of all the people that we had talked to by this point, none of them ever looked at things as a whole,
Or looked at you as a person.
or looked at you as a person.
I want to say there's only 3 doctors that like I did not hate.
The
I'm
whole,
not gonna, I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
it goes
Yeah.
back to the whole is greater than the sum of its parts,
Yeah.
right? You put it's much bigger than when you look at the body. There's so many factors.
So right around that time where I almost scared the psychologist to death, we didn't go back to him, by the way.
He was about as pale as I was.
Yeah, he was pretty pale. He was pretty scared, I guess. Anyway, I don't remember that. Maybe he was scared. But the point is, one thing that I will never forget and have guilt for the rest of my life. Remember what we did after the damn psychologist? He was right beside Subway. So what do we do?
Oh.
We go over there and gave him a Subway sandwich to eat. Right? This was before we figured out, and this brings us to the whole diet part. So one of the first things that actually helped, one of the other dads at church, I remember we were trying to maintain a normal life, getting out, and we're like, we got to get Cade out. We got to get him out of bed. And even if that means in a wheelchair, we were going to church. We were trying to do other things.
I mean, before we even got a wheelchair, you'd carry me on your back.
Yeah. That was, yeah. Well, you were pretty light. I mean, about then you
Skin
probably weighed
bones
what,
at that
like
point.
60 pounds, 70 pounds,
Maybe.
maybe, So anyway, we were trying to keep a normal life. And one time while we were at church and I was coaching basketball, I'll always remember this. One of the other dads comes up to me and goes, you know what? My son went through something kind of similar. Reminds me a lot of Cade. What's that?
I think I remember this. Was this? Yeah, you go get.
Yeah,
go-
we
go-
were in the gym there at Cornerstone.
Yeah.
He goes, my son went through something similar to this. And I was like, really? What was it? And he says, well, for his son, it was I'm going to get the name wrong. You probably ankylosing spondylitis.
Yeah.
Okay. So, which is spinal.
It's an inflammatory.
It's an
arthritis.
inflammatory arthritis. Hideous. Okay, so I go home and Google it. I'm like, oh my God, my blood gets cold. It's like arthritis of the spine, and all the prognosis is absolutely hideous. He said, my son was really, really bad, and then now, he can walk and whatever, and I'm like desperate. And this is one of the reasons why I'm even doing this as a podcast. I remember this feeling as a parent. I remember being so desperate. I just wish I could talk to somebody that understood what it was we were going through. And I was talking to this guy, and he goes, here's what we did. We changed his diet. We got him off of gluten and some other things. I can't remember, but gluten was the big one.
Soy too. I think you
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah, he might have mentioned soy too.
Sugars, maybe too.
Yeah, probably. And he said, we got him off of that, and that helped a lot. I'm like, serious? Diet change? It was like, we could just eliminate gluten and it goes away? He goes, I don't know. I don't know if it worked or what. I mean, he's not over it. He's never going to get over this. But it helped a lot. You might think about it. Okay. So I started doing some research on it. And sure enough, I talked to, that was the point. You remember this? I called you up and I said, okay, doc, here's the deal. I had this guy tell me that if gluten can cause joint problems, I'm like, is this, I believe my exact words are, Dr. Paul, is this bullshit or what? Is gluten causes joints to swell up? Remember the story that you told me about one of your patients that if she'd eat spaghetti, her knee would look like it swelled up? Do you remember that?
Yeah, and you can take, just like lactose intolerance, you can take somebody off milk products for a while and put them back onto it, and you'll get a reaction. And that's even happened to me when I got off of gluten. So not that I have a intolerance that I'm aware of, but when I was off it for a long period of time doing a special type of diet, I went off the wagon, per se, on some pizza, and I had that happen where my knee completely ballooned up and swelled up. So your bodies react differently for different things. So yeah, it can happen.
Well, and that's what Dr. Paul told me. He goes, "Yeah, Brad, hey, straight up, this could happen." He's like, "I don't know if that's happening with Cade, right? But it's a possibility." I was like,
It goes back to the, we do our double-blind studies and show that penicillin's safe. Well, it's safe for everybody but those that are allergic to it.
right,
So
yeah.
That's where and now we're learning, and I don't dive too deep in this, but there's something called epigenetics, how we're changing our genetic makeup by toxins, by foods, and different things that can happen through our body. So that's why, people can look at you like you're strange, that gluten could cause so many problems for Cade like this, but the reality is we're all different. We're vitalistic organisms. We're not all the same. We're not mechanistic like construction engineers are.
Well, so that was the start of this path when I was like, oh man, this is crazy. And then, but at the same time, there was a doctor that had multiple sclerosis from the University of Iowa hospitals. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I'm drawing a blank.
I know. I'm
female
drawing
doctor. I can't
female
remember.
doctor.
Oh, that was the one we went to, right? That I actually did like.
No, different doctor. She worked with her.
Okay.
But the one I'm talking about, she wrote a book on MS and the help me out here, the cells and the mitochondria. I'm engineer, not body part type. Okay, but anyway, her thing was she was an avid bicyclist, gets diagnosed with MS, health goes downhill. She's a research doctor at the University of Iowa hospitals, and so she's got access to all the cutting edge research and papers and everything. She does a bunch of her own research and she decides, all right, I'm going to simplify my diet, eat things that aren't going to cause inflammation, and she's able to go from wheelchair to walking again.
Dr. Terry Walls.
Dr. Terry Walls, that's right. All right. So the more I get looking at this, I'm like, maybe there is something to this. There was also a New York Times article. It was entitled "The Boy with Needles in His Knees." And I remember reading that, and I'm like, oh, my God, it's like Cade's story. And then, what do? They're like, okay, they changed diet, and it took a while. So we researched this whole thing, and I'm like, you know what? We're so damn desperate. We've tried everything else. Let's try a change in diet. So we eliminate gluten from our whole family's diet.
Oh.
Now, you remember?
Now hold up here. Now hold up.
Yeah,
You're like,
I'm abbreviating it. I'm like
we
skipping.
changed our diet. We eliminated gluten. I don't know what diet you went on, but that wasn't what mine. We eliminated everything. I had liquefied vegetables from Mom's garden. I was like, this is the most hippie crap I've ever done. And we were like farm kids and whatnot, and homeschooled farm kids. So I'm like, I'm used to my mom being a little hippie every once in a while. But I was like, she's going outside. She's picking out fruits and vegetables from her garden that we grew. She's bringing them inside to this old-fashioned liquefier we got from my grandma. She's a juicer.
One of the big ones with the hand crank.
And then you have the thing that you push down to oh my gosh. And then I see all this mush coming out the side. And I was like, I'm gonna eat that. She's like, no, you're gonna drink the liquids coming out the other side. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Now I'm a 10-year-old kid, and that did not sound appealing to me. But I was like, okay, Mom, if you say so.
Exactly.
Now, also at this point, though, I wasn't digesting foods at all. I'd go weeks without having a bowel movement.
Oh, and that was scary.
It was bad. We
That
went
was
to the
scary.
doctors, and they would X-ray me, and it'd just show up as white.
Yeah,
because I was
his
so
whole
backed up.
intestines were so backed up.
I remember the one doctor.
Remember doctor?
I remember one. I don't remember. It was Passion.
Well,
maybe I don't remember.
Yeah.
So one of the doctors came and they showed us an X-ray, and he's like, I don't even know what to say about this. He's like, you have to go to the bathroom, otherwise we're gonna have to get in here and you have to do surgery. And I was like, what?
What? Yeah.
I was like,
and I'm like,
I'm gonna have to have surgery because I'm full of crap. Now come on now.
Literally.
Yeah.
I'm like, Doc, what am I supposed to do? Tell a 10-year-old kid to sit on the toilet till he poops? And what's the answer here?
Yeah.
It didn't have great answers, and so that's when Mom's
that's when
what Mom's like.
We're not eating anymore.
We're
just
not
liquefying.
Yeah.
For the whole week, I'm on this liquid diet.
No, not just you though. We all did it together.
No. You guys did have food. I don't blame you for it, Mr. go
What?
out and have a little
What?
snack before your
Okay, I may have
classes and all
cheated
that.
on this diet
Man.
when I was at the office.
Yeah.
And Cole and Chase definitely did. I see them sneaking snacks all the time. I don't criticize them. It was disgusting.
It was.
But I was having this stuff, and Mom put beets in that thing. Beets. I don't like plain vegetables normally, but beets?
What kind
And that's all I could taste.
like if it was all vegetables, what kind of protein was it? Like what?
None. No, like I wasn't passing anything. So we're going a week of it was just liquefied vegetables.
For weeks.
For one,
Wi-
oh,
for
just
a
one
week,
week.
for a week.
Just 1 week
That's insane.
of only liquefied vegetables, like, carrots, spinach, broccoli, beets. I say that again. Beets.
Hold on. Do you remember the first meal though that we did on this? Because it was Dr. Wall's book. She was like, okay, the way you start this is you do this elimination diet where you try, you go to basically nothing, and then
Which we did.
slowly add things, and you keep adding things, and then if you find a reaction, then you eliminate that from your diet.
Yeah, we added like one new thing a day. That
Yeah,
way we could
one
like,
new
okay,
thing. Do you
we don't
remember-
know how
remember
long
the
it's going to
first-
take to react, so we're just going to add one thing. Okay, see how it goes, one thing, see how it goes, and so on.
Do you remember the first thing? The
Wasn't it,
swamp water stew.
Oh my gosh. That's what we
We're
called it.
kidding.
It
That's
wasn't
what
an
we called
actual
it.
thing. It was what we called it, me and my
It
brothers,
was
because
bone
here's
broth
what it was.
soup.
It was no. So, this is again hippie stuff my mom was doing. She picked weeds from the backyard, stinging nettles. I don't know if y'all
Nettles.
know what that is.
Yes.
Stinging nettles, this stuff where you brush against it
Boiled
and you're
nettles.
like, my arm, because boils are starting to bubble up. It's like, no, she took those. I'm like, I'm gonna eat that. She's like, yep. And I
She
was like,
boiled it first.
yes, she boiled it first. Thank the Lord for that. Because it got all the nettles off. Otherwise, I probably would have just died on the spot.
You're
Like
being a
hurting
little
instant-
dramatic.
yeah.
You're being a little dramatic here. Hey, you're
I was a
walking.
10-year-old kid. in
You're
pain.
walking now. Shut up. Right? Be appreciative.
Yeah. Anyways, I see her coming with
Anyway.
those stinging nettles. She throws them in a pot. I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And it comes out as this green soup with nothing in it. I got salt and pepper in that. Otherwise, it was weeds and vegetables and bone broth. I'm like, at least it's not beets.
At least it's not.
That's the point I'm at now. I'm like,
Okay.
oh, it's
All right,
not beets.
Okay, so that was the first step, and then we slowly introduced things.
Next we put beef in it.
Yeah,
And that's when it got the name swamp water stew, because the beef looked like logs floating in a pond of
Yum.
swamp water.
Okay,
The beef was saving grace, though.
all right.
My gosh.
But then eventually we were on this. We added some things, and you have to understand this is in 2012. So Ames Health Food section did not exist. Trying to find stuff that was gluten free and clean was, oh my Lord. You'd go to the grocery store, and I'm reading labels, and I'm reading labels, and I'm reading labels. I mean, it took forever.
But it did work like that
It
that
worked.
week.
It's-
It worked
well,
like
it
the next
did.
week.
Well, okay, by work here. Hold on. Let me classify this. Like one night, so after trying this for a few days,
I think it was like after that first
After
week
first
of just
week.
liquid diet.
so I come home, I go in to say hi to Cade, and he's sitting up in bed. I'll always remember this. I was
I
like,
smiled at you on that one, too.
yeah, I was like, and he smiled, and I was like, holy shit, maybe this is working. I was afraid to have hope. I was like, okay, we're gonna keep doing. And you want to talk about double blind tests? All right, so we introduce things like sausage, and we introduce things, like and not just
Do you
sausage, like
remember-
clean, like stuff from the health food section at Wheatsfield, and
Do you remember when we added ranch in?
yes,
Yeah, because we put ranch in because it was like I was only eating vegetables. So it was like, okay, well, what's something we could add that's simple that would make the vegetables better?
ranch
Ranch.
dressing,
Just ranch dressing,
horrible.
We put it on.
reaction.
Oh, I loved the ranch dressing so much. But I'd eat it. Like literally, my mom would take the plate away and I'd go down. Like
It was crazy.
that fast. Because like my
and his
mouth
lips. Do you remember your mouth? Your
red
mouth
and
got
dry out,
red?
like all the way around. That would be the first thing is my lips all the way around. Everywhere that had touched the ranch would turn red. And my lips would dry out. That took a little longer.
Think what your gut was doing. If your lips were
Oh my
turning,
Yeah.
think of the
gosh.
lining of
Well,
your intestinal.
believe
and,
me,
and,
I could
and we're
feel it.
taking the bottle. We're taking the bottle. We're like, there's no gluten in here. What in the hell is going on? And we're like, he had a reaction like he just had gluten. Here, let me give you an example. One night, I had to come home and I had to get sausage but I couldn't go to Fairway. I had to go to Hy-Vee. And so I get behind the counter. I'm like, okay, this is the freshest. This is the most pure. I'm going to get their sausage. I come home, cook it. That night, he's in terrible pain. He's up all night. I'm like, what in hell went wrong? And we're trying to go through everything that we've eaten the last day. And I'm like, the only different thing is this sausage. So I'm like, do you suppose there's gluten in the sausage? There can't be gluten in the sausage, right? Right? And so I go back to the meat counter the next day at Hy-Vee. And I'm like, hey, I got this stupid question for you. All right. I know the answer's probably no, but just humor me. Is there gluten in your sausage? This one right here. And like, he looks at me and was like, well, yeah, we use wheat powder as a thickening agent. I was pissed. I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, I mean, I thought it was just sausage. And they're like, well, yeah, we just thicken it up with some gluten and, with some wheat powder. And I was like, see, that for me, though, the whole double-blind test, in a way that was good for me because I was already kind of a believer, but that was like right there. That is, there's no suggestive stuff here. It's like that for me.
But by that time, too, the inflammatory processes in his body, other things would probably react, too. That normally wouldn't react because of his lining of his intestinal walls and stuff, too. So there's probably other things that were complicating it.
Most likely. All right, but when the ranch thing happened, right, this is, Dr. Paul, this is where you come in again. And I was like, Doc, what is going on? He's having reactions to other stuff like it's gluten, but I know there's none in it. And remember our whole discussion on foods that imitate gluten, cross-reactive foods?
It's been a while since we had
Okay,
this
yeah, it's been
conversation.
12 years. All right, so it's been 12 years. So I understand if you don't remember it. But this is where we were like, we need to find out what his body reacts to.
You also have to understand at that time, now listening to all these symptoms and stuff, now it's like a no-brainer. With all the ulcerative colitis and the Crohn's disease and things that we're seeing, it's all the symptoms discussed, your red flags are going to go up like crazy that this could be a possibility. Back then, that wasn't.
No.
Now you just bringing up the cross-reactivity and stuff. I forgot that. Now it's coming back because that's why I went to Cyrix Labs because they looked at those.
Cyrix Labs.
Mhm.
Okay, so we found a testing agency that would run a panel to test for cross-reactive foods. If you're sensitive to gluten, they're like, send us a blood sample. Sometimes
Send us a blood sample like 2 pints later.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This poor kid is like traumatized by this point. Every time we see a specialist, they like extract more blood.
Every time we saw a specialist, they wanted to do their own test. Like
they
we don't
wanted to do
trust
their own
anybody
test.
else's
They did.
tests.
Oh, and that's actually fascinating, right? You're exactly right. This is fascinating to me. No doctor trusts the tests from any other doctor.
So we go in, they'll go down to like the whole like, oh, we want to see how his legs react. So they get out their little hammer thing.
They've all
and
got
we're
the
like,
same playbook.
Yeah, and they're like, his legs like,
Hurt, right?
hurt. His knees are swelling. Like,
Yeah,
what do you think's gonna happen when you do this? And they're like, well, we want to check. We want to see with our own eyes. Like, okay, but he's not gonna sleep tonight then at all. Like, he'll be up in pain all night long. So only do this if you really think it'll help. And they're like, we got it. And then they'll do that. And then, legs are like spazzing. I'm like, what the? And then they make me walk or something. And I'm like, guys.
Everyone would rerun all the same stuff and then still get the same conclusion. Don't know what's going on.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, we run Cyrix Labs, and if you have any friends or yourself or anyone that happens to be watching this, I can't recommend them enough. If you think you might have some type of food sensitivity, we sent in a panel of his blood to Cyrix Labs, and they ran a cross-reactive gluten sensitivity panel, which takes up I don't know how many. It was like 100 different foods.
Dude, they send us a list back.
Yeah,
stuff. And I mean, like, they sent us a detailed list of like, okay, part of like, I took the list and like it rolls down, and it's like, okay, red. This is the stuff that you cannot have. This is the stuff you react like insanely to.
And that was.
And then there was orange, yellow.
There was you're right.
Red, orange, yellow, blue, green, or maybe green. Blue,
and I
green.
tell you what, that was what made a massive difference because now there was a couple other things that snuck in there. This is when we're like, okay, dairy, soy, and
Thank
damn.
God peas were on there.
Yeah, yeah.
Dear Lord.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
severely allergic to peas, apparently.
yeah.
Thank God.
Well, I don't think there's much danger of that. You never ate peas.
I was forced to eat peas as a kid. I
Okay.
threw them up, and I was like, I don't feel good. And you're like, oh, stop being a baby, you know? I had to eat those peas. I'd thrown up on the plate and had to eat the ones that were not in the vomit. I was like, I'm not feeling good. Like, oh, you baby, eat up.
Yeah, yeah. My wife's like, you're faking it.
Yeah.
Oops.
I never let
Okay.
parents live that down.
Hey, in our defense, you know how parenting works. You don't really know what you're doing ever, and then you only realize you screwed it up like years later. You do your best. You screw it up along the way. You hope you don't cause too much trauma. He's still traumatized by peas,
Lord.
right? Still traumatized by
isn't, though?
peas. And then you learn and you move on. So we get this list, and that is where we made big headway. It's like, okay, now we know what foods to eliminate. I eliminate it, and we are very strict on this, and he's still strict on all those things to this day.
Mhm.
Okay. So we eliminate all these things, and now we haven't even made it to freaking Mayo Clinic by this point, though.
I was still like bedbound. at
Yeah,
this
you're
point. I
still
wasn't moving
bedbound,
around. I
but-
wasn't even in the wheelchair really.
Yeah, it was hard to get him in the wheelchair. I'm honest, in all
Sitting
seriousness,
up was.
there was a period there, like about January of that year, where I'm like, man, I don't even know how we're going to be able to drive to Mayo Clinic. He's in so much pain, right?
There's literally moments of like that really bad time where I just can't remember.
Yeah. Well,
Like you guys told me later some of the stuff that happened or I said or whatever, and I was like,
yeah, it was a depressing time. All right, mental health wise, there's here I'll tell the worst. This is before we found out all the food stuff. The absolute worst night. I will never forget it. Cade and I we were reading. We were in the living room. He's laying. We'd moved a mattress there to the living room so he could watch TV, and
that way I didn't have to move.
then you
because
didn't have to move very
getting
far.
carried upstairs hurt.
Yeah, getting
I
carried
literally
upstairs.
just
Yeah,
lived
I
on
mean,
that mattress.
I hope that illustrates how bad this was. Just going upstairs, So anyway, we're there that night, and he's got my iPad, and he just turns it off, sets it down, and just starts crying. Right? He's just crying, and I'm like, hey buddy, what's going on? He's like, Dad, I just want to stop. I just want the pain to stop. I can't do it anymore. I just want the pain to stop. And I was like, all right, son, look, we're going to get an answer to this. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to find a solution. This is not always going to be that way. And we are not quitting on looking for an answer. This is before all the Cyrix labs and before the dad told me to eliminate gluten and before we had any progress at all. All right. And just like, we will get this. And then I tried to distract him. I'm like, hey, you know what? Here in a few years, you're going to get a driver's license. You ever think about what you want to drive? And he's like, oh, I kind of like Chevy Avalanches. I was like, all right, let's look. Let's just see what's for sale. And we look at, and I read to him Craigslist ads for Chevy Avalanche trucks. And I do this. I'm like, oh, look at this one. This one's black. And what color do you like? And, and I'm like going through this, and it's boring. And he finally falls asleep. All right. So he finally falls asleep, only for a couple hours, but he falls asleep. And then I will always forget. So I turn that off, and I cry myself with guilt. I'm like, did I just lie to him? I told him it would be all right. I felt like shit. I'm like, I could have lied to him. I don't know everything's going to be all right. I don't know what the answer is. Freaking best medical minds we can find in the state of Iowa don't know what the answer is. There is no answer as far as I can see. And did I lie to him? Is he never going to be able to actually drive? He couldn't even ride in a vehicle at this point, much less drive a car. Couldn't even walk to the bathroom. So you want to talk about guilt as a parent, right? You tell your kid it's going to be okay, and you don't know it's going to be okay. And the guilt there is overwhelming, right? So fun fact, to this day, we have a Chevy Avalanche in black, just like he wanted. The funny thing was, after we bought it, he didn't like driving it.
I didn't want to drive. I didn't have good experiences in cars.
Yeah,
And I was
okay.
like,
Okay,
"Oh,
so anyway,
I want to walk.
we still have that Avalanche. I like it, but anyway. But all right, so my point is that going towards Mayo, we were making progress with the diet. Our doctor here at Ames did not believe in diet change. He was like, "Well, there's no medical evidence that this works." I'm like, "He's getting better. Screw off. I don't care." And he's like, I don't really approve of this diet. He's like, "You're not getting enough this and this and this." And I'm like, "I don't care. You sit up with him at night then." So we go to Mayo Clinic and we meet with the head of
A brilliant idiot.
jackass.
Yeah.
Okay, no, he was not an idiot. Probably one of the
Yeah,
smartest men
true.
I've ever met. The head of neurology for Mayo Clinic, one of the smartest men I've ever met, an absolute jackass with no bedside manner. I mean, none. So we go and we go there, and he prescribes gabapentin for Cade. Okay, fine. That actually helped him sleep, and that was a godsend. That was a godsend. But they did not have an answer, and he literally told me, he's like, "I don't believe in any of this diet thing that you're on," right? I'm like, and I told him, I'm like, once again, swearing may have been involved, right? I'm like, "Look, doc, I freaking hate this. I hate this diet. I hate it with a passion. Tell me what's wrong with him, and I will drop it and do whatever you say." He's like, "Well, I don't really have any answers." I'm like, "Then shut the hell up." Head of neurology at Mayo Clinic is probably not used to his parents swearing at him, but I was just out of patience with the medical community by this time. And I was just done with it. He was a jackass, but several of the other doctors that we had, and this is funny, one of them we were talking to, and she was great. Do you remember the one that was an expert on conversion syndrome?
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
actually,
she was
yeah.
awesome. She was awesome. Anyway, we're talking to her, and she was a big help with some other stuff. But anyway, somehow, I said, "Well, this freaking psychologist said it was this," and she's like, "Really?" She's like, "I am an expert at this. I lecture all over the world on this one subject." I'm like, and she goes, "He doesn't have that." I'm like, she was probably the one that wrote the book, that he was trying to quote to us out of. She literally, I mean, she's getting published at Mayo Clinic. It could have been her book. And she's like, "He doesn't have that." I mean, he might now that we've put him through the ringer on all these tests and
Yeah.
stuff.
Traumatized by doctors.
Yeah, traumatized by doctors. She's
Anytime
like,
somebody's like, "Oh, you should go to the doctor," I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good."
So anyway, we leave Mayo Clinic, still argue over whether or not the diet's working, but we switch from gabapentin to what was the other one, because gabapentin did not react well.
Pregabalin? Something
No,
like
that doesn't sound right, but it's something else that's supposed to control nerve pain response. Anyway, the point is that those helped a little, and then they were wanting us to get him into physical therapy.
That was
Right.
great and terrible
All right.
at the same time.
Well, we tried physical therapy before getting his diet under control, and that was a hideous, colossal failure. Like, put him down. I mean, it was hideous. After getting the diet change, though, so this is something. While we're at Mayo Clinic, we're staying at. This is like our third trip or so, and we were staying at one of the hotels that was attached to Mayo Clinic, and it had a pool, right? And I was like, "Hey, they're wanting him to do physical therapy. Pool therapy was the best option. They had a pool. I'm like, "Hey, let's go down to the pool." So it was cold. It was winter. It was Mayo Clinic, Rochester, New York, or Rochester, Minnesota, and it was cold. And the pool was cold. And he was like, "Nah, I ain't." He was in it for like a second and got out. But then they had a hot tub that was right by the pool. He went into that, and then within an hour, he's kind of like splashing around and playing with his brothers. I was like, "Hello."
Now you got to kind of define splashing around and playing with my brothers.
Okay,
'cause
you
at
gotta
that point,
understand.
it's not like I'm swimming and like
No.
like diving or whatever. It's more like I'm splashing water at them and they're splashing water back.
And he's moving it all.
Yeah, like my arms are pushing water. I'm
Right.
not like I'm sitting in one spot, but
Well, but
I'm interacting.
compared to where you were at,
Yeah.
as you could have been, that was like a Olympic level performance. And literally Gina looks at me and she's like, we need to get one. I'm like, a hot tub? She's like, a swimming hot tub, a swimming pool hot tub. Right? You ever see those? The endless pool
The
thing?
swim spas.
The swim spa. So we ended up finding a used one and getting it moved to our house.
Now, not only did you do that, you built a deck up to it. That way I could get to it because I couldn't get in the dang thing.
So we put it in our garage, and our bathroom has an outdoor door that goes right to the garage. So we put a deck there so that he could literally go from the bathroom 3 feet to the edge of the pool and like crawl in it. And we kept it at like, what, 95 or 100 degrees?
Yeah.
And
Hot.
it was hot. It was hot, but
It felt good.
But I tell you what, I credit that thing. So by this point, we got the diet under control. We got some pain meds that are kind of helping control the pain. Starting to feel better. But you have to understand, this is like June.
Several months in.
You know, this is from November to June. His muscles have forgotten how to walk.
My mom could literally fit. My mom's not a big person. She's 5'1", 2, 5'2".
5'2". Give her,
Yeah.
give her 5'2".
But she's she's 5'2". But small lady, and her hands are small, and she can go like that around my legs.
Yeah.
Because I was doing nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
So the
My
swim
muscles
spa
swollen, not-
was like probably one of the best. I mean, Cyrex Labs, getting those results, and then buying the swim spa, getting him so that he could move, and that helped tremendously. It was still all right. So June. The last time he used the wheelchair was probably in September. It was September. We're at
I thought it was November.
it was just before the November basketball season started up again. Right.
Oh, yeah, because I remember getting out of it in front of all the
Yeah.
coaches and
Yeah,
stuff.
from all the coaches. So anyway, this is like a year. This is a year of desperation and everything, trying to figure out what this is, and the frustration of not having any doctors realize that, this could be an internal autoimmune kind of a thing coming out, manifesting itself with joint pain and everything.
Thank the Lord we were homeschooled during all this, because then I could just not do school.
Yeah, you kind of lost a year.
Yeah.
Actually, everybody lost a year. We lost a year. I lost a year. I need to go back to the students I taught then and apologize, right? Because I was not doing a good job.
Were you still in person?
Yeah. Yeah, this was all pre-COVID stuff. This is about 2012. 2012.
Yeah. Of which you
2012,
had like
2013.
maybe a couple weeks of sleep for the year.
For the year.
Yeah, because like he'd come back late and then he'd stay up with me all night long because I couldn't get to sleep most of the time.
Yeah.
And then he'd get up out of bed, of which he had like no sleep, maybe a couple minutes or an hour, maybe,
Yeah,
and then go right back to work.
Go back to work. One of my coworkers at some point, we were on the diet by then. I was losing weight, not the good way, and he's like, "Brad, you're looking kind of trim. What's going on?" And I said, "Oh, it's this new diet we're on." And you remember when it was basically after we moved off of out of the crushed vegetables, and we realized that meat was safe.
Oh,
So
the Lord. for
yeah,
that.
okay. So this is the daily. This is the daily diet for Cade back then, right? I said, so I get up in the morning, cook a pound of bacon. We eat bacon for breakfast, maybe eggs. He goes, I save the bacon grease, and you gotta understand this is like the cleanest bacon known to man that you can buy, right? I save the bacon. I cook hamburgers for lunch in the bacon grease.
Hamburgers from the cows we slaughtered.
From the cows we raised and slaughtered. Like, that's a lunch for supper.
Eggs from the chickens
Eggs
that
from
we
the chickens
raised.
we raised, right? And then I'm like, for supper, probably save some of that bacon grease, maybe cook a steak
From the cows.
from the cows we raised.
slaughtered.
He's like, guy looks at me, goes, you eat bacon and bacon grease for every meal, and you're losing weight? I'm like, probably has something to do with the stress.
And the fact
But
that
no,
You're on a
honest-
keto diet at the time. And you
Yeah,
know
yeah,
it.
I was keto before it was cool, brother. Right? I was. Don't get me wrong. In all honesty, so we were all eating very, very clean to go with him. I am certain I'd be a whole lot of pounds lighter if I kept that particular diet. right?
Hey,
But
I'm still on that diet.
he's still on the diet. I'm not. Control. I'm the control.
Yeah.
Right? I'm the I mean, if you're gonna do an experiment, you gotta have a control. So that's me, right? There's me, there's Cade.
Yep.
Genetically, he is my son, built very different. It's all the diet, man. It's all the diet, brother.
Probably a little bit of the physical activity. I'm slightly addicted
It could
to
have
now.
something to do with that too.
That's
Right.
your excuse that he's a ninja and you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
All the
exactly.
diet.
All
All
right.
the diet.
So here, I'm gonna switch this over. We're gonna watch just a quick little clip of Cade because so you have to understand while he's in the wheelchair, he's still like, I want to be on American Ninja Warrior. I want to be on American Ninja Warrior. You remember that?
Yeah.
You know, and here as a parent, you know, Paul, as a parent, I'm like, how do I tell him that there's no, you know, handicap division of American Ninja Warrior, right? So anyway, he got to watch a lot of TV, and this was one of the things. I mean, the dude knows all the names of all the people that are on it.
He used
You
to.
know, their backstories, used to know it, and so gets out of the wheelchair, and then you know it took a couple years
to
get
really get out of
to
it.
really get
'Cause
out
I
of
was
it.
in and out of it for
Yeah,
like
in and
because
out of
the
a little
real
bit.
bad was for a year.
Yeah.
And then I was in and out of it for the next
Yeah.
3-4 years.
You know how you talked about as a parent giving your kids when you were talking to him that night about giving them hope.
Yeah.
Kind of like you said here, talking about he's dreaming about having the opportunity to be a ninja warrior. It's kind of like when you're dealing with patients. You want to be honest. You don't want to give up that hope because we don't know everything about science yet. But you don't want to be misleading.
Yeah.
But you never want to give up hope. There's always somebody or something out there that's going to come about that maybe can help somebody. It may not be me, may not be you, but it's like this podcast. Maybe you're going to touch on somebody that can help them. So I think that's really important that you never give up that hope. And you know, like you say, you don't want to
No, you
mislead
can't.
it. No.
Yeah,
No.
it's a fine line though.
No. Yeah,
Let
it
me
is.
tell you, until he starts walking again,
Be a
guilt-
doctor.
the guilt. I could not. I mean this, and we've talked about this in class about why engineering is a great profession, because in engineering, if I'm careful, like okay, I don't want to. All right, this is going to sound.
A plus B equals C every time.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Right. And
I
as an
quit
engineer,
chiropractic school, healthcare, because of that. I was an A plus B has to equal C every time. And all of a sudden, patients are different. They're not
Right.
going to respond differently. Their lifestyles, you have no control of those things. And that's really tough.
see, as a doctor, you can do everything right and still lose.
Yeah.
If I'm really careful as an engineer, there is always a right answer. Now, the right answer might be too expensive for somebody to build. Okay, fine. Right? But what I'm saying is there is always a right answer to engineering and
And you can find exactly what
find it.
failed.
yeah.
If it fails, you know
Yeah,
why.
and I hate to lose. I couldn't be a doctor. You know, I just personality wise, it just would not. I would not be able to let it go. So okay, so anyway, so here, and I'm gonna switch over here. So this is Cade. Several years after the fact, American Ninja Warrior did this cool
That
thing.
was so stressful.
All right, hold on a second. I need to turn up my computer audio here. Just give me a second. All right, Cade, you want to here while I'm figuring this out? You want to
Yeah.
tell them what this is?
Oh boy, that's my dream, literally come to life. I throughout the whole thing, I always wanted to, as a kid, go beyond American Ninja Warrior, and I just wanted to more when I went down in the wheelchair because I saw these people going through this hard, intense, like physical challenge, and then just they're overcoming every obstacle in front of them, every obstacle placed against them, things that seem like it should be impossible, but they're doing it, and it's not just because like okay, they were just born capable of. I mean, nobody's born fit enough to do American Ninja Warrior. They had to fight for it. They had to work out. They had to go do hard stuff to get to it. A lot of it, it's painful. It's hard. It sucks.
Yeah.
But they worked hard and they got it. And I really wanted that. I was like, that's my dream come to life. And then
Yeah. So
when I walked up there on that stage, I was like, ah, crap, I'm here. They had me stand back there for 30 minutes because somebody before me had dropped like their last rope, or what was it? The ring, like it was like a slider, the second or third obstacle. It like fell in the water, and that was their last one. And it had broken that one, and the
I
other one was
know.
still drying, so I'd wait for it to dry off before I could use it.
Oh,
So I was back there for like 30 minutes between them trying to fix everything and mess around and get the new rope going.
so they came to our house to videotape this little. Here, hold on a second. That's him as a 12-year-old in the wheelchair.
That is not water in that jug. That was mineral nastiness. Don't know
Yeah,
what the
that's
heck you all were having me
Mineral-
drinking, but
What?
it was not water.
Well, you're not in the wheelchair now, so you're welcome.
Much appreciated.
Okay, all right. So American Ninja Warrior came out to our place. They had us, put together collages, some pictures like this of him during that time. They had this interview of him and kind of describing what was going on. There's our place. So they came out here and they had a crew. Like, this is only 3 minutes long, but that crew was there all day.
Oh my gosh, all day.
All
And
day.
they wanted me to talk about myself and all that. I'm like, I don't like talking about myself.
Right.
Like, I'll talk about the gym or what I do there, but like,
Yeah.
you want me to get emotional?
Yeah.
Ugh.
So here's him at the church, with the wheelchair, and then they cut to him splitting
Chopping wood. I'm like,
chopping
we
wood.
have a wood splitter. Why do I need to use the axe?
Yeah.
Like, it looks cooler. It looks
Oh,
cooler.
here, this is his first steps.
Oh my gosh, walking was so weird.
Okay, those were his first steps in almost a year. That we videotaped.
But you gotta
it.
understand though, with that, it's like I'm not just stumbling because it's like, okay, it hurts or my legs are weak. It's like they don't want to listen. Like
Yeah.
I haven't used them in so long, and like between the autoimmunities, it's just like I'm trying to tell it to go right, and it like drags along the ground,
Here, I'm gonna,
or my foot doesn't pick up. It's like these things I haven't done in so long,
yeah.
and just my autoimmunity
Here.
made it not want to work.
So we they wanted us to keep track of how far he could walk, right? And so we were putting pieces of tape down on the floor.
Hand on
We
the
s-
couch.
We stopped when the distances were going down, and then he doesn't walk, and we just pretend like it didn't happen. So that is after. So that's after our Mayo trips. So that's after getting the spa. That's after all that stuff with diet and everything. This was the longest he had walked in the better part of a year. And here, so he's making up courses. His brothers and him would make up these obstacle courses.
Because I was still watching American.
Because he's
Ninja
still
Warrior at the
watching
time.
American Ninja Warrior, right? So he's like, oh, let's do an obstacle, right? That was, you see that towel or that blanket? That represented a massive obstacle that I wasn't sure I'd ever see him walk over again.
And the part you don't understand too is
There. See?
when I'm going over that, I'm not just like, yay, I'm getting over it. I'm also scared of getting over it because when I get over, I know that I'm gonna have to catch myself.
Yeah,
I have to stay up. I have to fall because my legs are still hurting at this
right.
point.
Like this was it. That, like lifting his leg that high. That was it. That was like it. So this is
There's the
okay.
barn I used to climb.
There's the barn he used to climb, right? There's me. They're interviewing us. This is him at Emerge. This is him doing stuff in our barn. He's describing the whole process, and then he's doing pull-ups with a bale of hay at his feet. He doesn't do that. They staged
I did do
all
it
that.
once. I did do it
You did it
once though.
once.
When
You
you were
did it
like,
once.
oh, what was it? Somebody had said she was like,
Someone said you
oh,
couldn't do
you
it.
can't do a pull up with a bale of hay on your feet. So I was like, I'll go do it right now. So I went outside, did it with my feet, and then I ended up doing it with 2 bales on my feet.
Yeah.
And oh man, that was
Yeah.
hard.
Okay.
Got
So
a splinter
anyway,
from that.
so they start. We're back to the competition. This is like 3 or 4 in the morning. I'm there in Hollywood. It's probably all burnt down.
It
now.
had rained.
It rained. It
sprinkled.
was
all the
cold.
obstacles were wet. It was freezing. I was told it was going to be warm. There was going to be heaters. I didn't bring a coat for this. The heaters all broke out in our warm-up tent, so I'm back there shivering, and I'm like,
Yeah,
guys,
this is like
can't do this.
35, 40 degrees. They were
everything's
like,
wet.
this is really cold for California. I don't know what's happening. It's like, great, thanks.
Great,
Yeah.
great.
Right.
Here's me and my T-shirt out here.
Yeah. So there's the family back home. There's me and his.
There's my
and
coach, Spencer,
Yeah.
Scott, and some other athletes I trained.
Right
with
now we
before.
can't see him when he's doing this. Right, we're around the corner. So we
That
have,
pole was so wet.
and like half the people there lost right there on that obstacle.
The first one.
Yeah, the very first one.
Two-thirds actually
2/3.
lost.
Was it 2/3?
Yeah.
2/3 were disqualified from that
Wow.
first obstacle.
This is the one that had fallen in the water, and they were trying to dry off.
Yeah.
This thing was everything was wet.
Everything
you
was
can see,
wet,
if you
slick.
rewind, you can see the pads have water on them.
Yeah.
How is that fair? Like somebody gets some.
It
they-
just is what it is.
It
you
is
know?
what it is.
They're like,
do
you
your
don't
best."
have to run, but I mean, if you are running, you got to run in
Yeah.
these conditions. Sorry.
Yeah. So They're watching at home now. He's like right in front of me and his coach.
And that obstacle right there, that one right there, pause.
Oh, okay.
Pause it. Go back.
All right,
Go
hold
back. I
on.
want to like look at my face before we do this. Where is it? There.
Yeah. What?
The like terror in my head of losing to that obstacle, to be like, okay, I've trained my body so hard to this point. I've worked so hard. The stress of, are my legs gonna be what takes me out of this
Oh
competition?
gosh, I know. I was watching this.
Are my legs gonna fail me again?
Did you have trial runs on this obstacle?
No, you
No.
never. You didn't get to test any of it. We didn't even know what we were doing until that night.
You don't have a clue what you're going to be
Nuh-uh.
doing.
No.
They don't show you anything until the night of. Then we went there, looked at it, and then they're like, okay, we're starting in 15 minutes.
Oh my god.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
Now
15
they say you're starting in 15 minutes, and then like a bunch of delays happen. So it turned out to be like an hour later we ran, but they were
No,
like,
you didn't run for like
I didn't run
3
for
hours.
several hours. The first
3 or
runner didn't
4
run until an
hours.
hour later.
Yeah,
But yeah.
first
oh my
runner-
gosh.
Yeah, because then they had lunch. Oh my lord,
Yeah.
California Union lunch.
You're required to have a
You're
lunch break
required to
Yeah.
have lunch. So they have a lunch break
for
at
an hour.
2 in the morning.
Oh.
You know, all right, that's lunch, and we're like,
What?
And now I have my allergies still. I brought food for like, a couple hours. I was like, I only need one meal. At this point, I'd ran out of food and I can't eat anything they bring. They had some
Yeah.
bananas for me. They had oranges. It was oranges. I ate you. If you ever meet any of the guys I competed with in that season,
Yeah,
you
he's
should
the
ask them about
orange
the
ninja.
oranges
Yeah.
because I had a pile of oranges stacked up like a solid half foot.
Ah.
My gosh.
all right. So
But
here's
yeah, the stress,
scary,
the fear, like, oh, that was
Yeah.
terrible. That's why I paused for so long.
Yeah, I was.
I
like,
was literally praying. I was like, please, Lord, don't let this be what takes me out.
All right, so the audience is right there. Most of these are like people they've paid to be there though.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Other than the
yeah.
people's like specifically
Yeah,
on your sidelines,
Yeah,
most of those people.
and
are
there was
just
a good
there.
contingent from Iowa there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All this stuff was metal. It was wet.
I just can't believe that you didn't get the course beforehand. Like you didn't know what you're doing.
Nah, not until that night. They had to have so many. Took so many hours to try to get that obstacle to work right.
Yeah, it took forever. Oh, here it goes.
These were horrible.
These are horrible because watch this. It doesn't swing like it interrupts when they hit,
Yeah.
right? And then
I should have taken more
swinging.
time on this one.
Yeah. Here it is. He's so close to the end.
I tried
Like
to
the
one-
buzzer is right after this splash.
Yeah. I tried to hold on with my backhand,
And
thinking that I could monkey bar it. And
yeah,
I
and
could not.
it was just
just out of reach, and then
just
the
out of
bells
reach.
hit and popped my hand off that back one, and down I went.
Yep. And then here, watch this. He gets out of it. He gets out of it. Like I said, it's like 35 degrees. He's like steaming, you know.
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
kind of see it.
it's it's so cold, but
Oh yeah, it
Anyway.
was miserable.
it
The
was
guy before
miserable,
me,
but-
the guy before me, I was like, dude, how does the water feel? Please tell me it's at least kind of warm. He's like, yeah, I didn't notice it at all. I was like super tired by that point. So when I went in the water, it actually felt really good. And I was like, oh, great. Well, I got to that point, and physically, like, I was not tired at all.
Liar.
I know, I
Yeah.
was, like, seriously. I was like, physically, I was not tired at all. Like, I'm used to doing a lot harder of courses. But at that point, I was so stressed that I felt cold.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went in the water, which was freezing, by the way. It was like 40 degrees out there. And I'm like, what is this? I popped out of the water. I was like, this is not warm. I was lied to. Oh my gosh. And they gave me this little towel and told me to wait there for the interview. And I was like, I want to go home. I want to go back to the heater. We have one working heater that's only kind of working. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it was quite well. And then so that was good enough to qualify and go on to the next round. So then we got to stay there for like 2 days.
Oh yeah. Yep. Oh my gosh.
You know,
And
It
I
was-
did not have a coat.
Yeah,
I had
it
a
was,
jacket.
It was fun. I mean,
Oh,
and-
I
and-
loved
and-
it, and it was a dream come true. But
Yeah, it was a dream come true. I had to be there to see it. I mean, that was awesome. But his other competitions are way more interesting to go to.
yeah, those are definitely that one's definitely the flashiest.
That's the
Like,
biggest
and
production.
it's still like been my dream forever, and still is to go back on and hit a buzzer because I did not get one
You're
that
so close.
I was so close several times, But yeah, now I really do want to go back and
So
finish that. But
so that airs, all right, and then we start getting calls. People would somehow find our phone number and call us at home. And we were getting tons of parents that were like, "Hey, Cade's story sounds like my kid's story. What do I do? What you guys do? What advice can you give us? What doctor did you talk to? Who did you what?" Because they heard what I didn't have there on the audio is all them talking about Cade's struggle with autoimmune problems. And they're like, "What doctor did you talk to? What medicine were you on? What'd you do?" And it was kind of crazy, you know.
I think the night of, I got over 60 messages.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Oh, from
just from people like, what did you do? How do you how did you overcome it? Like, how did you get better? And
yeah,
like some of them were parents, and some of them were people who
parents.
were dealing with it, and they were like,
Man, I had parents. I remember I had a couple of parents call me, and they were like in tears on the phone. They're like, "Doctor tells me that this is in my kid's head, and I know it's not in their head." But they're telling me I'm an abusive parent, and I'm I'm like, "We're not crazy. I know we're not crazy, and I'm like, "You're not crazy," and I
because so many of the doctors, like, even when they like talk to me, like, sometimes you remember when they'd send you out of the room to talk to me just by myself.
oh yeah, yeah.
And then-
The are your parents giving you these
Yeah.
ideas?
The
you
ones where
know?
they're like the ones that are like, oh well, if we can't fix it, then it's your problem. It's your fault.
Yeah, it's
you
our
know?
fault.
So they're calling.
That's
Is it in
lovely.
your head? Yeah. Is it in your head? Have you all this?
It's either
stuff.
in your head or it's in your parents' head.
Yeah.
There is nothing as encouraging as going to your doctor for help and then having him tell you, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are lots of medical problems that are your fault, okay? But at that moment, that was not what we needed to hear.
No.
And that just, see, that's why I probably got so angry at the psychologist, right? I just didn't have any energy for bull crap like that. And I was like, just all came out on him. Poor dude's probably still traumatized.
Yeah.
He probably had to go
That
to
guy's
therapy.
still probably like-
he probably went to therapy for the patient or patient's
my
parents that
gosh.
were in his office. So, Dr. Paul, I guess here's where I would really like you to talk about knowing, obviously you've been firsthand watching this whole family drama that we have. If you want to talk a little bit about diseases like this, like Cade's. This is basically an autoimmune gone crazy, and if you could talk a little bit about it and what you might, because odds are, I know from Cade's experience, there are tons of parents and people fighting with the same issues, and they're having trouble knowing what to do.
Well, first a disclosure: I'm not an expert in nutrition.
Oh, hey, if you're getting your nutritional advice from a podcast,
yeah, don't be doing that.
don't do that. But
But-
anyway,
But I will say there are people out there that are exceptional in this, and what we call today is called functional medicine, and I think it's wonderful. It helps a lot of people. That's not what I do.
we did find a very good one.
Yes.
I'll talk about
Yeah.
her here.
But at the time, it was not even heard of hardly at all. There were some people
There's
doing
like
it.
one
Yeah.
in all of Iowa at the
But
time.
now everybody's talking about functional medicine. But at the time, I did know there's enough about the gluten intolerance, and there's ways you can test for it. And so that's where I guided you guys. But that was definitely not my specialty, nor is it today. But I think a bigger concept is the principle that this whole episode shows us in the healthcare system that we have to look at is that you're not just healthy and you're not dead. You're in a spectrum, a continuum of health. And if I can diverge into this a little bit, I'd like to share with you what I mean by that. So at 100% health, we have 100% of our body parts functioning 100% of the time. On the other end, at death, we have 0% of our body parts working at 0% of the time, right? And so when you come off the health aspect, and also we're at body's at ease, it's at rest, it's functioning the way it's supposed to be. You come off that a little bit, we call what's called a diseased state. We're not at ease. I'm not saying disease, dis-ease. Not 100% of our body parts are functioning 100% of the time correctly. All right, and then as you move down the spectrum a little bit further, that goes on long enough, you start having symptoms. Now we call that a disease process, and they move all the way down to the death spectrum, right? So what I'm saying is we're not just here or here, we're fluctuating back and forth. And there's different things that affect that because a person just in our society, we don't treat somebody unless they have a disease, the symptoms, right? And so what I try to encourage patients to think about is what are we doing on this end of the spectrum to keep down here? Eating right, exercise, nutrition, those types of things. Not just feeding our body, but feeding our mind as well. It's worth a lot more than our body is. And so I think that's really important as to understand that health spectrum, that you want to make habits that keep you on the other end of that spectrum. That's number one. The other thing I touched with you guys a little bit about is talking the difference between intrinsic versus extrinsic diseases. Extrinsic diseases that are coming from outside sources that are making us sick, like COVID and all the old polio, different things like that. The outside diseases are on a decline. You look at all statistics; they're pretty much going down due to hygiene, different things that we've done in our life. On the opposite side of that is the intrinsic diseases, the autoimmune disorders. You look at diabetes, you look at autism, you look at all these just intrinsic diseases that are coming from inside our body. They're on a definitely projection upward. And I think that's where we need to really step back and look at, say, hey, what can we do that healthcare is not just an event. The doctoring is not just an event, it's a process. And I don't just mean by saying taking vitamins and nutrition, all that. Those things are very important. But, it's keeping care of our nervous system functioning properly, it's eating properly, and putting the right stuff in our brains and moving our body in the right direction. So I just think that's important to understand, to set that stage, is that it's not just you're healthy or sick, you're in a process of that. And that's where he was at. This just didn't happen overnight with Cade. And he didn't get better just overnight either. And so
even when I got better, I wasn't fully better until I really started putting in the work of, okay, clean diet. I went and started exercising a lot, which really helped me progress.
Yes.
I can't even stress enough of how much.
Well,
that
we also know helps
progress.
depression. It helps with your immune system. Everything's stimulated with exercise. So that's very important.
Maybe I should try it sometime.
You think it's overrated?
Every time, I think it's overrated. Every time it's kind of a function of your age. I did notice, I'd start in the 40s. It was really when I would start working out and then hurt something. And then it's like, okay, I'm out of working out for a while, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to start back again. And oh damn, my elbow.
Well, when you talk about
shut
Well,
up.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't make me treat you like a psychologist.
Oh dear Lord.
Okay.
Not
All right.
psychologists.
No, go ahead.
But no, what you're saying, and it didn't happen overnight. It didn't, but we didn't realize it. So Cade growing up, always a little bit on the smaller side. Okay, fine.
A little pale.
But also, I remember one time we were camping. I was getting hot dogs for the kids. It's like, hey, Cade, you want a hot dog? Yeah, I'll take a hot dog. He just grabs a hot dog. He's like, and I was like, hey, you want a bun with that or what? And he's like, nah, I don't need bun.
Do you want any sauce on that? No.
No, and we thought growing up he was just a picky eater.
Do you remember the sores I'd get in my mouth?
Yes, I do. Yeah, he would get.
I would have
terrible.
I'd have open sores in my mouth, and I don't mean okay, I have one or two, they go away, they come back. No, I mean I would spend weeks with sores in my mouth of 5, and they would not be as small. They'd be ranged from tiny to I think I had one that was almost the size of a dime or a nickel or something.
But do you still get those now that you're not?
No.
Yeah,
not unless I get punched in the face by a guy I'm sparring with.
What I feel, what
that doesn't count.
When I talk about that spectrum, the thing that gets me is that we don't ever address those things until we start seeing symptoms.
Right.
We don't eat healthy food or eat clean until we have a problem.
But then you might not even realize when you have them.
Right.
I had those sores.
Right.
I didn't even realize they were a problem. I was just oh.
But everybody's starting a diet right now because of what happened this last year. They put on the weight. What do they do in January? Now, once there's a symptom, they see it. Now they're motivated to try to make a change. There's always say there's the pain of change or pain of staying the same.
There's what interesting to me though is some of the things that are making Cade unhealthy, like soy. You know how many organic soy things there are in this world? You think you're buying clean stuff, and the thing is, like you said, it's very, very body specific. Everybody's spectrum. It's
right. and marketing is horrible.
Oh
today.
God, yeah.
And healthcare and
especially when it
nutrition.
comes to
Yeah, you don't know what to believe.
Exactly.
You don't know what to believe. I mean, I was in your office today, and I was like, hey. is whatever whatever question. I was like, is this bull crap or is this real? And what do I even buy for a vitamin? And and it's like it's so hard to know what's real and what's marketing.
I want to go back a little bit. You talked about the
Yeah.
pain thing, and I think this is important to point out too. Is those in defense of some of those doctors, when you brought up the thing about the gabapentin, there's when our parts are broken, there's times you have to intervene, right?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
the
Right.
thing about the gabapentin, it allowed him to at least start moving again.
Yes,
which was something
yes,
I think
which
we
is
have to point out
critical.
that it's that we kind of don't mean to be bashing medicine here, so I want to make sure that we show that there's definitely benefits to that. When the parts are broken, we need the intervention in that, but let's also look at what we can do to prevent things.
No,
forms.
you are exactly right. That was you know what the gabapentin did is I remember he gave you gabapentin when we were at Mayo Clinic. We had to come back the next day for another appointment, and he slept through the night for the first time in months. I was like, woke up in the morning. I'm like, oh my god.
Because up to this point, I'd been getting like maybe an hour of sleep.
Yeah,
a night.
hour
And we were like,
here,
okay,
hour there.
he fell asleep at night. It's like, okay, I fell asleep. I didn't stay asleep. I just fell asleep.
Yeah. So that was you're right. You can't. And this is the thing that I was railing on the doctors. Doctors like, you need to take him in for physical therapy. And I was like, no, we need to get the pain under control so that he can do physical therapy and
'Cause
have it be
physical
productive.
Because physical therapy was good for a while, for some of it, but it was,
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for it at some point.
Well, and I think, and Doc, you're going to have to. I'm going to, in layman terms, probably way oversimplify this, but I think this always existed in Cade. It's just that up until that point in his life, he'd been able to deal with it, and then at some point, his body got overwhelmed, and it's like
Then it
can't
just crashed and
just
burned.
crash.
it-
Just
There's a Dr. Luce that talks about the 7 systems. He's a functional medicine doctor, and that's what he
Yeah.
talks about is that when one system breaks down, guess what? Then the next system breaks down because
it's
we
like
treat that
dominoes
and
that
just-
keep-
exactly.
well, I mean,
And that healing takes time going the other direction too.
And it did. It did. Oh, and that's the one thing that I would like to point out for anybody out there. If you're watching this and you're like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to give the diet thing a try," it's not a 1 week thing. And this is something that parents that would call me up, I'd tell them about our diet, and I'm like, you got to commit to it for a minimum of 3 months, probably
And
6.
you have to
And
commit
you have
to it.
commit.
If you cut and cheat at all, it's not like you're like, oh, well, nobody will know. 'cause
Nobody
it's
will
like
know, yeah,
It's you're affecting.
Okay,
Your diet will
I don't know
not
if you
work
knew
if you
this.
don't
I don't
do
know
it.
if you knew this, but remember when we were like first starting out on that diet, right?
Yeah.
And we had a family member, I won't say which one, come over and like, oh, I brought some
Oh,
cookies for
yeah.
everybody, and and I'm like, no, we can't do that. Oh, it's just a cookie. What can happen with like one cookie, And I was like, no. I mean, we got into an argument for it. Do you remember one night? While we were having, I can't even remember where Gina and I had to go, but family member was watching you and gave you something that had gluten in it, like a plate of spaghetti or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I come home, I'm like, Paul,
Well, it was a box of like the quick fried sausages or whatever.
whatever
They usual
it
form up, and they had
was,
soy in them.
they had soy in them or
gluten.
something, and I was so pissed. I was like,
Because
no.
that would set me back a long
oh
ways.
yeah, it was like
It'd be from like, okay, I'm going good. I'm taking steps forward.
Yeah.
I'm making progress.
yeah.
To like falling down the stairs. Like it's just like boom, 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 boom.
And
I went down.
I called him in the middle of the night. I'm like, are you going to be up with him crying? Because he's crying right now, and this is your fault. And don't you ever do this again, or you're not around our family. I had to get stern. I didn't quite go full on psychologist on him, but it was close. It was close, right?
Oh,
But
gosh.
the spectrum that you're talking about is if you're trying to repair from that, you've got to commit to the diet for
It's
a
I mean,
long
if you're
process.
the person that's
Yeah.
like me who's got the condition, it's a lifestyle you commit to. This
Yeah.
is not like, okay, this is something I'm gonna do to get better. No, this is how I'm gonna live to live better.
Yeah. So like when I tell people about it, I'm like, yeah, Cade is like Tom Brady clean diet, and it's kind of crazy. So, but anyway, it's a commitment. And what's fascinating to me, we had a guy at church that was in a wheelchair with MS. And after this, we were telling him, I'm like, hey, you know what? you might give this a try. The so-and-so, the book with Dr. Walls, said Dr. Walls, you might look at her book, and he literally said he's in the wheelchair drinking a big old thing of Mountain Dew. And he's like, yeah, I can't do that. I can't give up Mountain Dew and all these other things. And I'm like, you have kids. You have little kids. And you're in a wheelchair, man.
That's the part of why you couldn't be a doctor.
Yeah, it is, actually. So
Yeah,
let me
don't choose to get better.
people don't. And there's the thing that one of the reasons the neurologist at Mayo Clinic said to me, he said, I don't take into account diet changes. And I'm arguing with him. I'm like, look at the changes in Cade. Do you believe him now? He goes, it doesn't matter. I don't believe people will do it. He's like, you guys are the one out of 100 families that would actually do it. He's like, what I don't believe, I don't have faith that most people would do it. So I don't even look at it because I don't think it's a viable option. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure if we disagree or agree,
One thing too, and this is maybe a bigger concept, but I think this is where it all starts. You have health care and you have disease and crisis care. And what do we call health care in the United States? It's actually disease and crisis care. It's not health care. And so we need to teach at younger ages, and that's why I agreed to kind of come here today, because I think it maybe was influence young people to think about, treating your health. No, treat your disease and crisis. Treat your health, and that comes from eating right, exercising, all those types of things.
Well, but, it's tough to do when you're young. Here, it's tough to do with a family, all right?
Yeah.
I teach here at Iowa State. I have a decent job. And I will tell you, buying healthy food is, for a family, it is crazy.
The bread I get.
Oh
because
God,
most,
the bread
most breads are like
bread,
you can get bread. Yeah, the bread that I have is rice bread because I'm not allergic to rice.
Yeah.
But most breads, like you can find bread for like $1, somewhere in there. My bread's over $8 for one loaf, and it's not a big loaf. It's like little loaf of bread.
Go back to
$8.
that doctor's comments. It's true to a certain extent.
It is true.
Not because they don't sometimes choose to. They can't afford.
They can't.
Yeah,
They can't.
That's
sad. That is one thing. I will say financially, what Cade went through was fairly devastating to us. Swim spas are not on the old medical plan. Mayo Clinic wasn't even on the medical plan.
I was accidentally the most expensive child.
Yeah, you.
Middle child's always the problem child. Sorry.
Is the middle child,
Sorry.
right? Yeah, she's the oldest, so she's like, yeah, it's the middle child.
Oh yeah.
Our middle child also has a gluten intolerance.
Oh, hold on a second.
Oh,
Here, you
my
got it
gosh.
here.
I was saying our middle child in our family also has gluten intolerance, but she's
What can I say? Us middle children.
I think she's gone to the doctor. I don't know what she's doing to combat it, but she's also a hypochondriac, so she thinks everything's wrong. But
Well, it's like being paranoid. You're not paranoid if they really are out to get you.
that's true.
And it's not if let's just look at Cade. Hell, half the food. I'm gonna say Cade could almost starve to death in a regular grocery store.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
especially back when we first found out
Back
about
when we
it.
first started, oh my Lord, like reading label.
But
nope.
I think
Rice
Nope.
Krispie treats
Nope.
have gluten. Like you have no idea. It was just like there's just so much that has gluten in it, like the pork and the
Well,
sausage.
And soy.
Yeah, sorry.
The amount of stuff
and-
soy's in.
and his is a dramatic case.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
There's cases
Yeah.
that people are just unhealthy, don't feel good, they're not sleeping well, they have aches and pain. Those are some of the people that I think are the most dangerous for them, because what is it doing to their cardiovascular system, all the other systems? And so that's where I think we need to make a change, not just on those that are obviously for Cade's sake it was important, but there's other people out there that I think could benefit from understanding that concept of eating clean.
Well, Cade, could you here for, let's say there's people your age, people Sophia's age that maybe and here, this is something I've noticed, is that the food today is drastically different than when it was when I was a kid. And if you look at growing up, this is why a lot of people my
And it
age
tastes different.
taste different.
And the amount of minerals and vitamins that are in that food source is different.
Different.
Yeah.
It is all very different.
Because of the way we grow it.
Well, but if you look at people my age, most of them, and I was this way, I was like, yeah, this is bullshit. Gluten, blah blah blah, allergies to this and that, whatever. You know, peanut allergies and stuff. There was no peanut allergy kid when I was in school, right? Well, what's
Yeah.
happening is as
Everybody has allergies.
well, because the food is different. Now, this is okay. Engineer, not a nutritionalist, not a doctor, I'm not qualified to talk about this at all. However, is my
You're going
podcast,
to.
so what the hell? All right,
I've
so this
taken a
is
few
opinion.
classes over that type of stuff.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I saw it once on the internet. Anyway, right, if the world is a spectrum and it's a bell curve, and you take humans and at one end you have someone like me that doesn't have any sensitivity to gluten at all.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's Cade with massive sensitivity. He would almost crawl up and die on a plate of spaghetti. I literally think, on that bell curve of people's reactions, today the difference is the food isn't the same. So if you're working across campus here in Iowa State, I'm not saying that they have done this, but let's just pretend. And you're genetically modifying grain so that you increase yields and get more wheat out of every acre. Okay, let me just be clear. I am opposed to starvation. Okay, everybody understand? I don't like starvation. So let's have enough food here for people to eat. And globally, let's say at one point in our history of the world, there wasn't enough food for everybody to eat. And we need to increase productivity per acre. How do you do that with wheat? The gluten is the protective part that encases the grain. The grain, and this is things that I've learned, and I hope I'm right, and Doc, please correct me if I say stupid stuff, but I'm just going to say stupid stuff, so what the hell, right? But if the gluten is the protective part, not the actual grain, but the protective part that wraps the grain, what's going to happen as a result of us genetically modifying and doing different hybrids of grain? We're going to say, oh, look, we get greater yields, and I guess part of that maybe has resulted in a more gluten around the grain itself. And I'm saying this based on, if you look at traditional Italian wheat, European wheats, people with gluten sensitivities, a lot of them say, I can eat it. I can eat wheat from, natural wheat from Europe or Italy, and it doesn't bother me as much as buying, and that's because they're different wheats. We have a hard red wheat here in the United States that is grown predominantly. In Europe, they use a softer red wheat. I don't know the exact genetic differences. I'm just saying there is a difference. What I'm saying is that if that part of the grain, the gluten part, is becoming more hardier, prolific, however you want to put it, it's going to affect more people on that bell curve. The humans that maybe didn't change, but the food did.
Well, it goes back to that epigenetics thing that I was telling you about, how we're changing genetics with foods. We're in our studies coming out that shows the earlier you give kids antibiotics, again, I'm not against them, but we got to be more responsible. But when they're given them too young of age, how it's affecting the gut bacteria with the gut-brain barrier, and how that can affect genetics in our body too. That is an interesting concept. Although they are doing a lot of the GMOs without affecting or trying to decrease the glutens and stuff. I've read some of that
sure.
too.
Now they are. Well, now they are, but that's, 10
I
years
think
ago,
it's not
no.
just
welcome.
that. I think you have to look at everything. And again, I'm not, this is really controversial, and I'm not hanging my hat on this. I'm just saying this as an example. We don't know, where do vaccinations play a role in this? Where does the GMO play a role? Where does the overuse of antibiotics play a role? And all these things are combining our preservatives in our foods, with the aluminum in our deodorant. Where are all these things playing a role in the epigenetics? Epigenetics being how we're changing our genetic makeup by what we're doing to our bodies.
Well, at one of the arguments I got into with the neurologist at a Mayo Clinic when we were talking about the gluten thing.
You've argued with a lot of doctors.
I argued with a lot of doctors, and this is something I learned as a parent. Parents out there, you've got to be the advocate. You don't just sit back and listen to whatever the doctor says. You question. Oh, I'm sure doctors hated me. And I'm like, okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? What are we doing for, and I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? I wanted answers, and so one of the arguments that we had is he's like, well, there's no papers that study gluten and say that, I said, okay, studies are for the average. Studies are for the bulk of the population. I'm not interested in the effects of gluten on the bulk of the population. I am only interested in the effects on one kid. 1. And so your studies are never going to show the answer to Cade because he's so damn rare. Because they told us this too. They'd only had like 1 or 2 other kids like you
At that
in there.
time,
At
yeah.
that time,
That's why I give that example of penicillin. You know, if you're
Yeah.
allergic to it, it's
if you're
terrible for
allergic
that
to it,
person.
it's
Yeah,
deadly.
And so that's
But
that,
for the-
that's why those studies aren't 100% right for vitalistic with who
See,
we are.
and that's it. Our medical system is trying to treat things based on the law of averages. But when you have a problem like Cade has, you're not looking for the law of averages. You're not looking for the normal. You are looking for the rare and exceptional. Therefore, you might need a rare and exceptional answer
And look outside the box.
and look outside the box. But healthcare is predominantly inside a very, very regulated box.
Yeah.
So, Kate, you want to talk about like what when we say your diet, you want to talk about what your diet is?
Like today diet or like back then?
No, today. Let's go today. Like if somebody's watching this, they're like, yeah, maybe I'm not like in the wheelchair or anything,
Yeah.
but maybe I'm just not feeling like I think I should.
Yeah.
Like,
Well-
what's your diet like? Kind of go through that.
Well, so today, obviously, I'm living in my own place. You know, I'm not living with my parents. I got a job. I'm paying college tuition and like all this stuff. So my funds aren't necessarily large. So my options for food are kind of limited if I want to stay healthy, but also don't want to spend a ton of money on like really good healthy stuff. So I'd say majority of my diet is mainly meats and just fruit. But like obviously I still have to. I can't
Okay,
just buy
hold on.
like
Meats, not processed.
yes, grass fed. Like I
Ideally,
can have.
grass-fed.
I can sometimes if, like I can't find anything. I might slip a non-grass fed food in there.
Does it
I'll notice.
non-grass fed affect you?
It can. So it depends. So like the way I actually had I think it was one of the doctors that ended up explaining this to us, but it was it really depends on the animal then, because if
Yes.
let's say it's a cow,
You're
and
okay with a cow because they're
yeah, the cow can be
Correct.
fine or something, but it's like if something like
Chicken.
a chicken, yes, ate like a bunch of soy or like
Mhm.
a bunch of wheat or something like that. They ate stuff that I am allergic to, and they ate enough of it that it's like, okay, now that's the majority of their diet. Then that transfers over into their meat,
Right.
and then it'll affect me. And while it won't be as severe for me as if I ate, soy or whatever on my own, I will still have an effect. If I continue to eat it, it'll just get the effect of that meat will just continue to stack on top of itself and get worse and worse and worse. So the majority of my food is just meats, grass-fed meats. I hate vegetables, so I don't usually eat that. Corn's great.
Okay, that's not.
That's more of a personal preference.
That's a personal preference right there.
I do not like vegetables. I wish it
Yeah, I
takes
mean,
off like a third of
You're
my
not
diet.
eating
but-
beets anymore?
For Cade, yeah.
What?
You're not eating beets anymore?
No
Oh,
beets.
dear Lord. I would have never eaten any of those if I had my own say, but I guess they did get me to where I am. Hopefully that's why. But
I think, and this is an opinion, that's
Mhm.
all this is. If for a foundational to eat, if you look at a bodybuilder, anybody, 90% is nutrition, right?
yeah,
And powerlifting and everything. But if you look at the Mediterranean diet, that is one of the most clean diets. Now, you still have to watch for glutens and that situation stuff too, for those that are allergic to glutens. But as a general rule, and we're starting to see like the American Diabetic Association and Heart Association coming out and showing that that's one of the better diets for people as far as a place to start. If they don't want to dive clear in, that would be a good reason. And it's what you're talking about. Right
yeah.
now.
Like my general, like when I'm really trying to find out, like, okay, when I'm going to the store and I'm getting myself food and I look at the ingredients, if it's like, I'm like, what is this? I just don't buy it really. It's like, it's got to be like, okay, what's the ingredient? Beef.
Yeah.
What's the ingredient?
Goes
Pork.
back to our marketing because we hide a lot of this stuff with fancy
Behind
words
big
and stuff.
words. It's like, I don't know what this is. And then you look it up and you're like, okay, like this is something that's extracted from soy. And I'm like, I'm allergic to soy. Will this affect me too since it's extracted from soy? I don't know what the heck this giant long name is, I'm a college kid. That's just like, okay, gonna grab something. Okay, I can have that. I can have that. I can have that. I don't really know what that is. Well, they didn't tell me I was allergic to it, so I'll probably be fine.
Right.
But-
So when we're shopping for food and Cade's coming over to eat, it's really like, what's in it? Can I look at it all? Nope. Put it back.
Do I understand
Do I
what's in
understand
it?
what it is?
Don't
No,
eat it,
put
then
back.
you don't.
But like fortunately, now we were kind of fortunate when this was all going on because we live in the country, like you said. We had chickens, so we had our own eggs.
We controlled our
Right.
source of food.
We controlled our source of food. We had a grass-fed calf. We raised a steer, butchered it, and guess what? It ate grass. It ate oats. Mostly a hay diet. A little corn, but being able to know where your food comes from is a huge deal. So when Cade's eating with us, yeah, we gotta have provisions for it, but it's not as hard as it used to be.
Mm-mm.
And I'll be honest, in all truth, usually his food tastes better anyway. I'm not even kidding. There's like you go to the health market there at Hy-Vee, and they've got these, what are those Twinkie looking things?
I have no idea.
But they are amazing. They're in the health food area.
I don't even know how they made those that I can
It is
have
a
them.
Twinkie substitute. It does not have gluten or dairy or soy in it. Better than original Twinkies.
Like they made, what is it?
Yeah.
Rice Krispie treats. They made a version of those I can have, and like the ingredients, most of the ingredients are like vegetables and stuff.
Somehow.
I don't know how they did it.
I have
but like,
no
it's
idea,
like,
but it's way better.
made from like rice and corn and like a bunch of other weird stuff. I'm like, I don't know how they took that and made this out of it, but this tastes really good. And it doesn't look like vegetables, so I can actually eat it without being disgusted.
Yeah.
I don't think of beef.
And the foods you're
liquefying
eating fill you faster too.
Yeah.
You need
empty
less of
food.
it.
The empty
Yeah.
foods are truly empty. They don't give you any good calories, and they don't fill you up.
But I mean, I understand how it happens. I mean, look at now that we're not all on the same Cade's diet. I know I was many pounds lighter when I was, but when you're busy at all, you've got a job. You're Olivia's. I'm sorry.
Olivia.
That's one of my other TAs and also in the class, right? Sophia, you're working a summer job at a construction site. You don't have a lot of time for healthy eating.
Hard, for sure.
Yeah. And working any job that's demanding, and you're like, oh, it's just a cop out. No, it's just a lot harder. It is a lot harder, and when you only have so many minutes in the day.
Well, one thing that would make a huge difference, you can all do that. You drink water.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
drink
People
so
always
much
ask
water.
about vitamins.
I don't even like
Make
pit
sure you
water, but I
hydrate.
drink a lot of it.
And that goes back to because I made me think about that is gut health, going back to that again. Yeah, gluten affects you, but also what really irritates the stomach health is which people aren't. We all know about antibiotics killing the good bacteria,
Yeah.
but a lot of people don't know that your anti-inflammatories do that. Your ibuprofens and things like that kill your good bacteria. Diet pops kill your good bacteria, and so not only are we getting it from our food source antibiotics and antibiotics that we take when we need them, which we have a disease that we need it for, but we also are depleting and killing and hurting our intestinal wall that way.
So that was one of the things that we really, really looked into, and we found a functional medicine doctor in Iowa City. Remember the one you said you liked?
Yeah.
Out of all the doctors.
What was it,
Dr.
Buchkenna?
Buchkenna.
Yeah.
She was amazing. She has her own functional medicine. She left the University of Iowa hospital system. She's a functional medicine doctor in Iowa City. Last I knew, she had at least a 6-month backlog before you could even get in to see her for anything.
Yeah.
No, that woman,
But it is worth the
stand
wait.
up. You know what?
But there's where you want to learn to eat properly, so you don't have to see the functional medicine either.
Well, all true. But we were so far down that road
Right, I
with
understand.
Cade's, and what was awesome about her is that she was the type that never liked to lose, would never take no for an answer, would never be like, nope, that's all we can do.
And cared for you. She
cared.
treated you and looked at you like a person. Like
she
most of the
did.
doctors I went to,
Oh,
you were a patient. You were a project.
Yeah.
You know.
no,
That was what
you were 15 minutes of billable time.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then she's like, I want to help you.
Yeah, she's like, I got to figure this out. And
Yeah.
one thing she did, talking about the body not, being on a spectrum. If a normal human processes vitamin B, right? It was vitamin B.
Yeah.
Let's say that we have perfect, normally healthy person is 100% at whatever at processing vitamin B. Cade was like, he is like at 25%.
That's because his gut health is lining his intestinal wall.
Yeah, it was a mess. So one of the things that was a very helpful thing for us because we're like, okay, now what do we do about this? She's like, he needs more things with vitamin B, which involved a bunch of vegetables.
Disgusting.
Yeah, he wasn't all that crazy about that, but he does get vitamin B. But even then, even eating stuff with eating stuff with lots of vitamin B just meant the vitamin B went right through his gut.
of which my gut wouldn't process.
Yeah, which the gut wouldn't process it, so it did no use. So what we did was we actually got him vitamin B shots, so get it straight into the blood system.
And of course, I
Yeah.
hate needles. So.
And of course, he hates needles, but we did it to him anyway, right? And it did. And I think you normally do still feel better with the vitamin B shots.
Oh yeah, like when I
Right.
don't have vitamin B shot, like I'm like drooping, like
Yeah.
I have a hard time even keeping my eyes open, getting up in the morning. Hard enough as it is, it's
Yeah.
much
Well,
harder.
you like to
without
sleep
the-
late as it is, so yeah.
Hey, sleeping late's good.
Okay. All right. But anyway, the point is like, all right, once again, it's a spectrum. This is a complicated thing with there's so many moving parts on his incredibly complicated chemistry. And one of them is, okay, that took over a year before we found that out from Dr. Buchkina, before we found the functional medicine doctor, before she
Yeah.
ran these tests or even thought to run the tests, So anyway, it's quite the process when you have someone with the autoimmune function because they don't
Dysfunction.
dysfunction. I'm sorry, dysfunction. Thank you, because there's not a test for it. Basically, doctors tend to blame autoimmune when they can't figure out what it is. They're like, no, it's probably autoimmune. There's no test like if you can run a test that's like, do you have this disease?
Some conditions,
Some
autoimmune
conditions.
they can test. Yeah.
Some conditions. That's true. Not all, but like on that one, on Cade, it was not like there was ever a diagnosis that says, yes, Cade, you have this autoimmune problem. It's like we've eliminated everything else. We think it might be autoimmune something. Here's some gabapentin.
How can we heal the body, though?
Yeah, yes, and that's where thank God we looked other ways, right? And I know you say, yeah, mom's a hippie, right? But one of the things about it
I say
is
that with affection.
with affection, because she was very much an outside the box. We need to look at all things.
And I remember back in those days when you guys pushed me to another level.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have something my kids always tell you. I say all the time.
I don't think I ever scared him like I did the psychologist, though. But
I was more afraid of Gina than you. So.
you should be actually.
gonna
yeah,
say.
you should be.
But I have a saying. My kids they always hear this. I say it. You're the same today as you are tomorrow, except for the books you read, the people you meet, and your relationship with Christ. And so every patient that comes into my office, I feel like I learned something from, and that I did. That whole process with Cade, I wasn't an expert in it, but I was open-minded enough to have you go get the blood test.
Yeah.
And I say that humbly because like every day, being in practice 35 years, I learn from every patient that comes in. I know it sounds scary that I'm learning from my patients, but it is true. And you learn from just experience sitting here listening with you guys. You continue to learn from that. But I will say, I think I need to change something in that saying. I think it should add the same today as you are tomorrow. And I didn't, part of that quote, it's a John Maxwell quote, but is you need to add in there what you put in your body. I think that's just another
True.
part of that saying you need to put it because it does make a huge difference.
It does. I went from
In your mouth and in your brain, what you put in there and down below. Too.
yeah. I went firmly from being in this is a bunch of hippie horse crap to no, it's not. There's something very, 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 very real here, and it is a struggle. But I think today it'd be a whole lot like with your sister. Does she try to eat clean? I mean, here.
Yeah, at our house, we have like a bar cart, and my sister has a couple shelves that are just for her. She gets her own food, like very clean food. And I think that
Do you sneak anything off that chart?
I get in trouble. Anytime I
I didn't
touch
get
it,
my own
it's
shelf.
like there's eyes everywhere. Like she literally has her own shelf, and I tried to grab some turkey jerky off it the other day, and my mom yelled at me. She's like, "That's Marie." but-
Everybody criticizes me when I do that, and Cole's like, "Hey, I wanted some of your." Like he goes and takes some of my food. I'm like, "That is my food. I do
It's-
not share my food."
It's kind of it's crazy because I mean all three of us are very athletic, and I try to watch what I eat as well. So I'm like, why is that reserved? But whatever. She's the one with all of the problems, but
You don't understand. That is our life source there. That's
Yeah,
all we have.
yeah, because she does the expensive bread and all of that, the extra stuff. But I try to do like more meal prepping. I was gonna ask you, do you think that like the repetition of meals? Do you think that's something that helps? Just having like the same exact breakfast every day, or
Yeah, but not forever. But it's good to have
Yeah,
some
or like
consistency.
healing? I was wondering,
healing
Do you
prep.
guys meal prep or?
Oh God, we got so boring.
Meal prep. I had one meal my entire I had
Yeah,
lunch, dinner, breakfast, like all of it was the same meal.
It was we literally had for a while there.
I
we
did not
probably
like it
had-
when you mixed it up too, because they come up with
Oh.
some nasty stuff.
That's
know-
how listen,
Oh my
listen to
gosh.
some nasty
They're
stuff.
I don't know some of those stuff you made me eat, but oh my gosh.
So
Dude,
what
had
you're
me eat
saying,
straight
sometimes
ginger.
I think we have to forget that, vitamins can be stressful. Any change to your body is stressful.
Exactly.
So taking a bunch of vitamins all of a sudden can help, you can get sick because it's stress to your system. But it doesn't mean it's not healthy for you long term. But so to answer your question, I think sometimes there's some definite benefits to having that consistency.
Mhm.
So your body, unless it's really bad food, but if you're eating good foods, I think that meal prep is fantastic. First of all, it comes with a disciplinary aspect for yourself
Yeah.
too, to make sure you're eating properly especially in meal preps.
Mhm.
Which, can I share something?
Yes,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
When you're talking about the college kids again, I don't know if they can see this or not, but this
Just
book
hold it
called,
up in front of you.
how
There
about
you go.
that? Now
There
we
you
got
go.
it. Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
Have you read this or heard this book?
I've read part of it actually. A
I'd
friend
be
has it.
interesting I was thinking about you when I was reading this, because I'd be interesting to see what you went through in the process, is how many things you'll relate to in this book that
Yeah.
created you to create those changes and
I
why
wanna
people make
read it.
changes. I'd encourage every college kid to read it simply because of the fact that, study habits, things like that. And then also thinking about nutrition and creating a habit for you now at a young age, because it's a lot harder to change those.
Oh yeah, I ain't
conditionings.
changing anything by this point in my life. I mean, come on. I'm already in my 50s. What does it matter even?
Pain
Oh,
or
yeah.
pleasure. There's two things that motivate you.
Okay. All right. No, actually, Kate, you know what would be fascinating
Hmm.
is at some point to write down kind of the road back to health.
Yeah.
Kind of like document it, because just judging on the amount of desperate parents I got calling us here, we can argue the why, and I don't know if at some point maybe we'll figure it out. But what we do know for certain are things like autoimmune problems on the rise, autism on the rise, reactions like Cade, food allergies on the rise, on the rise, on the rise. Argue to your heart's content whether that's people changing, food changing, environment changing, probably all of the above. Whatever it is undeniable that it is happening. Those things are undeniable. I mean,
So what can you control?
and that's
What we're just talking about.
that's what we're talking about, is taking control. And
Before you
Cade.
have the symptoms.
Well, okay, before you have the symptoms, true, but those symptoms are a big motivator.
Right. It's
You
like a
know.
person has a heart attack, smoked their
Yeah.
whole life, that
Yeah.
all of a sudden they may stop smoking,
Right.
Or change their diet.
The fight against it too, as much as it is physical and especially was for me, it's more so even mental.
Yeah,
Because,
because
like,
I
you
don't
get
I don't want to
yourself to do
say
it.
I don't want to say it's like, oh hey Cade, we need to change your diet. All right, yeah, sure, it sounds like great.
Even having
Yeah.
you guys being like, okay, I was 10 and you
Yeah.
know, listening to your parents while, a lot of times like, it kind of comes naturally for you,
Yeah.
know. It's like, oh, dad says I need to do this, I need to do this.
Yeah.
But
That
like
still work?
even with what
Does that
no,
still work?
not
Okay.
related to today. But middle child, but no, back in the day, it's like, he'd tell me to do it. I'm like, it would normally come natural whenever he was serious, But then when he's like, okay, you need to eat this, I'm like, it was still a mental battle for me to actually do it.
Think
Like I
as an
mentioned earlier, you guys made me eat ginger root. Straight, cut it up into pieces, spoonful ginger. I don't know if you all have
that's
ever tried
actually
that
pretty
before.
good.
Did you tell that neuropsychologist about that, or that you're talking about when he's talking about if your dad beat
Dad,
I have PTSD.
uh,
Oh.
uh,
No, yeah, I didn't like talking to therapists. Most of
yeah,
them
yeah,
are-
none of that went well.
Therapists are probably great for some people. I guarantee a lot of people do need therapists. I mean, I know several people that have talked to them and it helps them. For me personally, though,
Well, but
I
it
just-
wasn't going to help then.
no, it was not going to help
know,
me.
until
Not
you get
then, not
past-
how they were trying.
Until when pain is so debilitating like that, nothing else matters. Nothing
Yeah.
else matters, but getting past that and just talking about it more is not going to help.
It's not helping. Yeah,
It's not necessarily not necessarily, definitely not at all helpful.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's been a good discussion of kind of the road Cade went through and some lessons learned, perhaps. Right. And, one thing that we haven't talked about, this is really about the diet, but the other part to this, I think, one thing that I've noticed is that you are healthier the leaner and more physically fit you are. right?
To an extent.
To an extent, which sometimes you
Bodybuilders
take
out there.
too far, right? You take this too far sometimes.
Well, hey,
for
now,
my,
I don't know what you're talking about.
what are you talking about? What's your body fat right now?
Oh, probably like 7%.
Is it even that much?
I don't know.
I don't think you could. I don't think it is.
I
I think you get a little on too low.
I don't know.
But
You
I'm
know
not
what's
an
in-
expert.
you know what's- you
I
know
don't
what's-
know these.
you know what's
things, but-
interesting?
Yeah.
I'll bet he has a better idea what his body fat is than not pointing fingers in, but you and I do.
Oh, I know what mine is. It's high.
What's your number?
What's my number? Too high to care. I'm like, I'm guilty. Okay, guilty as charged. Right?
But I meant that as a compliment to him. The
No,
fact that,
yeah.
that he is aware of his body, and I think that's what people need to be aware of. It's the only one we get. We have to take
Yeah.
care of it. It's the only one God gave us. We have
It's
to
when the
take care of it.
people that I talk to, like, I'm telling them, like, you need to get healthy, you need to get in shape, whatever. Because, I mean, I'm a coach at a gym, and like, a lot of people come in like, oh, how can I do this? How can I help? Whatever. I'm like, you need to first off know your condition. It's like, you can't just jump in without knowing what you're doing, and most people don't care to know. They're like, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm like, you don't even know whether or not you're fine. You just refuse to look. So.
All true. Well, there's words of wisdom and all you had to do was go through a wheelchair to find all this wisdom.
Yeah, only a couple years of suffering, and hey,
You're suffering.
good to go now.
All right.
Now what you can do with it?
Now what I'm gonna do with it?
Well, he's changing.
See.
Impacting people's lives. That's
Yeah,
good.
he is impacting people's lives. These is good things. He's good with the kids and the coaching.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's all natural stuff. So, all right. So since you're hearing all this for the first time, did you have any questions for Cade or Dr. Paul, or like hear something in the story that we glossed over or anything?
You did a lot about the diet, but what was like the physical road? Like, what were some of the exercises? Or you talked about physical therapy a little bit, but is there something that you did physically that helped you to kind of
Yeah.
add on to that diet?
So as far as like physical stuff that helped, I mean, just physical activity in general would help. Like, is helpful. I can't say
Well,
like
The
okay,
pool.
the pool made a
the
huge
pool
difference.
was a huge difference because it made me. It allowed me to be physically active again. Because like up until the pool, I was doing nothing physically active. I was sitting around. I was unable to do anything, and that takes a toll on you, like physically, obviously, but it also takes a toll on you mentally. Not being able to do anything, especially as a kid, sitting out at the window and watching other kids go out and play when you can't, is physically like not being able to do it, physically taxing, but mentally the stress, like, or the burden of like, oh, all my friends are going out and playing, everybody else going out and playing, and I can't, was horrible. So physically, I want to say anything I did was progress. I mean, you do what you can, and then as you're able to do more and more, you just keep doing more and more.
I think something important to understand why that is the joint health was irritated so bad, but getting in there took the pressure off the joints. But movement of joints stimulates mechanoreceptors. They're kind of your pain mediators. They shut down what they call nociception, and it makes you feel better. And so that's the runner's high is endorphins. We know about that. But our joints, that's where my chiropractic, I have to always can't help that. But we did adjust Cade during some of that time. The nervous system controls and regulates every tissue in the human body. I'm not saying it cures and prevents everything, but the nervous system controls and regulates everything. So you have to have a proper functioning nervous system. And I'm not just talking about chiropractic care, but I'm talking about what he did. The gabapentin, I hate to give that credit, but he got him to move. I remember you coming in and talking to me about getting that hot tub and getting him movement. That to me, I always tell our patients, motion is lotion. There's so much benefit to joints moving and the body moving. So to what you're asking, I think that was part of his healing was the rehab exercising too.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you have to be a ninja warrior, but
I was going to say one thing he has done that I've noticed is he went from low impact to maximum impact.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's all a good idea, but
I enjoy it.
How did the chiropractic care help the healing? Like, I was wondering that from the second you came in. I know that the diet was.
what am I doing? I
like,
don't know
what
why.
did you do to
I don't know what
specific-
Brad really brought, other than the fact I think that I was open minded to help him, guide him to the direction to get the lab work to look at the gluten intolerance and those types of things.
Okay.
But chiropractic care, I'm not going to sit here and say that had any
Well,
part to do with this.
There's at least one thing I want to say about it was that all right, so as a coach, your body will adapt to the situations you're in, and so whatever you do consistently is what your body will adapt to do. And as I spent for the whole year, I was either bedbound, wheelchair, or anything like that. I wasn't walking or doing any physical activity. My body got set to the point where my feet normally, they face forward or out a little bit, they got to the point where they were like crooked and like one was facing in more and they were like wouldn't move right. I went to Paul and he popped my legs and like hips and they straightened out more. Like it was weirdest thing, but like obviously they weren't placed right. My body had just kind of gotten to the point where it's like, all right, I'm in this position all the time. It just set in that position of slowly cramping up.
So if the nervous system controls and regulates every tissue in the human body, why would you, the importance that you'd want your nervous system function the best of it can. And so that was my only goal was for him is that, you know, we knew we were fighting other things, but man, I want my nervous system firing as best that I can. You know, just even like if I'm going to go have surgery, I want to make sure that my nervous system, I'm going to have my neck adjusted if needed and make sure my nervous system's firing properly so my body can adapt to whatever it's going in. It's all about adaptation. Is our body able to adapt to stresses? We're going to have stresses all our life, physical, emotional, and chemical stresses. How's our body able to adapt to that stress? I want to make sure my nervous system's working, can do that. And our joints have such a role in that, especially our spine. Not just a bone on a nerve, but the little joints, the little fibers that are in the joints are affecting how our body functions.
Yeah, because you're receiving and sending signals, and if you can't send them correctly, then
He's got it. It's called a safety pin cycle. The body's always communicating. But what do we do in our society is we try to, I'm preaching, aren't I, a little bit?
Go ahead.
But in our society, what we do is we block.
Preach on, Pastor.
We block those receptors, right, to tell our body what's going on. So what's our body do? It doesn't know what's going on, so it doesn't put out the things it needs to put out there to help to heal, like prostaglandins and things like that, for our body to heal properly. So I'm not saying there's a time and a place for those things. We need those, like what helped him get started and going. But we also have to look at the consequences of that, too. We're tricking our body so that our body isn't able to function the way it's supposed to. And it just it breaks down one of those systems, which breaks another system instead of getting healthy. So.
and it'll teach it to rely on those things too.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Yeah, you and I have to have another talk.
Yeah,
Sometime.
all
I
right.
think you need to go beyond what you're talking about
Yeah,
There's so many different pathways you can go down.
in healthcare.
especially with health.
Yeah.
Especially with health.
Yeah.
Already getting associates in like 4 or 5 different things, but don't know if I'm gonna get a major in any of them. So I know all the different roads you can take.
You'll figure it out.
All right. Any other thoughts there? Any questions for him or Dr. Paul while we got him here, Sophia?
I don't know. I think we did a good job covering it.
Okay. All right.
Well, I want to thank you, Brad, for having me and get to go go through that again, and also to see the video again. That's just it's inspiring to see where he came from to where he's at now. And I'm kind of anxious to see the next chapter. What's he going to do with it? I want to challenge you to find out what he's going to do with it long term.
We'll see. We'll see. I don't even know quite yet, but I did write actually a little bit of what happened with me in the wheelchair. And Dad, you read it, so it was definitely a little glimpse into a darker time.
Yeah, it was.
went
You know, it's odd because as a parent,
you got a different perspective.
yeah, I have a different perspective, and to be honest, I don't really like going there. You know what I'm saying? It just reminds me of a dark time, you know, almost like a void in my memory that preferably I'd rather avoid.
I have a question for
But
Sophie.
sometimes it's helpful to talk.
I don't want to elongate this, but could I
No.
ask us?
Yeah.
Did your sister? Do you know she's a lot younger than you?
She's a freshman in college right now.
So what? How many different years are you?
2.
2? Okay, so you wouldn't know
2
this.
and a half, yeah.
Did your parents ever say? Did she have a lot of health issues when she was really young, or
Mm.
any?
See, I don't think so, but also this kind of goes towards like what we were talking about. We don't know what relates to that. We don't know the things that, like the steps
Right.
that took to get to where she's at right now.
Yeah, that's why I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, I also didn't really know until she started having a big problem with it that it was just something that you like developed out of nowhere.
Right.
But yeah,
Sorry.
it's okay. But I thought that gluten allergies and gluten intolerances were developed really early on, and that was something that you were kind of like born with. But I didn't know what factors could contribute to you having a problem with it.
Yeah, I know patients that were in their 40s developed it and found out, and maybe they had it to a lesser degree before, didn't know it.
Yeah.
And I know of young people, well, his situation, but I also know of high school right now is just diagnosed with it and realized there's a genetic trait in his family too. So, but there again, what triggered a genetic thing? You know, why did some people, just because you have that genetic trait doesn't necessarily, you know, certain thing. We got to identify what's triggering it, what's causing those types of things. So it'd be interesting to find out. That's something for different minds than what I have here. So
Is any part of that, maybe not gluten specifically, but is that hereditary at all? Is that
for like gluten intolerance?
yeah something?
I was talking more like with ulcerative colitis and things like that.
Okay.
So, yeah. And I'm sure they're 100% on all that either. So.
You know, this is one thing that going through all this, it really makes me question, because we accept doctors as the ultimate authority on things. And after doing this,
No.
I definitely, as a parent, got a mindset of I question things a whole lot more now. Like when our girls were little, I questioned the hell out of the vaccine schedule, because so we had the 3 boys, 2 years apart, and then a 10-year gap, and then we had the twins. And once they're born, they're like, okay, here's our vaccination schedule. And I'm old enough of a parent, I'm like, wait a minute. When our oldest son, who's only 16 years older than these girls, got vaccinated, 2/3 of these vaccines weren't on this list. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're going to take this little child and pump them full of how many shots all at once? And I question doctors hard on this, and I'm like, I don't think so. And they're like, oh my Lord, you want to try about getting lectured to? Be a parent that says, I don't think I believe in the entire vaccination schedule all at once. And they're like, oh, Mr. Perkins, this is very serious. I don't know if we can treat your child here. If you don't get all these vaccines, we might have to report you. I was like, excuse me? Did not go well once again. And I'm like, I'm not saying I'm against vaccines, but I'm not sure I want them having all of these at once in this little kid's body. What's wrong with spreading these out over the course of 2 years? I'm like, why does an infant need this vaccine against a sexually transmitted disease? That was one of the ones that I was like, I don't understand. Why couldn't they wait for this one till they're not a baby?
You could start a whole new podcast.
Yeah, that's probably going to be a separate podcast, I think. Because I just, the whole thing with Cade really makes me question everything with the healthcare system, which which we should. That is normal, rational, and sensible.
And it is, as a doctor, right now the responsibility. I mean, patients have access to some of the same literature access we have with smartphones and everything. It's all out there. Dr. Google and everything. So it keeps you on your toes as a doctor. And I think, but patients do have to be their own advocate.
Yes, they whatever it is, you have to be your own advocate.
Yeah.
You're a parent. You got to be the advocate for the kid.
Yeah.
You absolutely do.
And definitely doctors don't know everything.
No, and it's like, okay, I want a second opinion. Maybe I want a third opinion. Maybe I want, who's the expert in this? How many times, that's how we ended up at Mayo. I'm like, are you the expert at this? No. Well, tell me where is one? How can I go find them? But and what's fascinating to me is you get a doctor telling you, oh, this is absolutely, whatever it is. Then you go to, like when we were at Mayo Clinic, I was like, they're like ordering all these tests. And I'm like, hey, we just ran those back at Ames or University of Iowa. Yeah, we don't believe those results. I was like, what? No, hold on. This was explained to me as being the absolute gospel truth on, is he lactose intolerant? Is he this or this or this? And they're like, yeah, we can't trust, we don't know anything about their facilities. We can't trust their results. I was like, well, what the hell are we making decisions on? We're making medical decisions based on these results. You're telling me at Mayo Clinic that you don't trust these and these results, and that there's so many, percentage of false positives and all these things. So at one point, we go to, you remember going down to Kansas City where they did the biopsy?
I didn't know where the hell we were going. I was riding in the car.
No, this was after. Remember, you and I, we had to go stay at Kansas City, and you had to fast for a day.
That was horrible.
Okay, one second, horrible.
Oh, my gosh.
They did a biopsy of his gut, right? And
I had a tube go up and down both
comes back. The doctor is like, hey, did you know that Cade's lactose intolerant?
Well, no,
I about freaked out. I'm like, excuse me, what? We ran all these tests that said he wasn't. When they were like, yeah, we think it's food. And they're like, nah, you're crazy. This result shows that he's not any of that. And then I'll never forget this. The doctor at Kansas City says, yeah, we ran a biopsy. This is the gold standard for telling whether or not he's lactose intolerant. And he's lactose intolerant. I'm like, but this test that they ran, oh, you know what? You get at least a third false negatives on those tests. And I was like, are you saying, because by this point,
I'm going to go full.
Yeah, we had gone without dairy because of the Cyrex Labs test.
Yeah.
This is like years later. I'm like, after all that stuff, you're telling me that some of the things that we believe back then. Doctors are like, he needs milk and he needs this and that, and we're like, that's not good for him. Like, nope. See, I got this test here, and it says
I got this
fine.
piece of paper
I got
that
this piece of
says you're
paper.
wrong.
And then the doctor that actually goes down into his stomach, takes a piece of it so that they can do that's what the biopsy is. And they're like, yeah, he's lactose intolerant. He can't have milk. He can't process it at all. I'm like, yeah, we knew. And it's like the doctors didn't know, but by God, we knew,
Yep.
So all I'm saying is, like you said, be an advocate, get second opinions, go to other hospitals if you have to. Anyway. All right, and that's why I drive an old car, because all of my money went into hospitals.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. That's why I still have the 20-year-old Avalanche. You're walking. I don't need a sports car.
Yeah.
All right. It's all good. Okay. All right. Well, I would just like to thank everybody for coming, right? Cade, thank you for coming, telling your story. Appreciate you sharing all the ugly truth and stuff that we went through. Dr. Paula, thank you for taking time out of, you got a business, you got a family of your own, you got hunting to do. I don't know. You're a busy fella, so appreciate you taking your time. Sophia, well, she's on break, so she doesn't have anything to do until she takes my exam on Friday. So, but I do appreciate you driving all the way up here, because it's not just next door for you. So thank you for coming, and thank you for contributing to my podcast. It'll be a little bit till I get it all edited and on YouTube, but I'll let you guys know when it gets there.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks.